Chapter 161 Trouble Times 8. Skydiving was a bad idea. The flash entrance to a battlefield by 4 flame Atronach hawks surely took everyone's attention. The flame Atronach hawks only meant one thing, and one thing only. John Dare is here. Everyone who was affiliated with the hidden clans that were involved with the recent trouble around Winterhold will surely know that these are the birds were the harbingers of disaster that caused a devastating loss to the Bloodwhore curse and completely removed the Bloodsail's influence from Winterhold. Now, and with the appearance of these flame Atronach hawks, the scene took a rapid turn to the worse for the eyes of the Bloodsails. Bring them down. Before anything else, bring these damned things down. The Patriarch of the Bloodsails shouted at his men. The archers that were on the second wave attack have fully retreated and tried to intercept the 4 flame Atronach hawks. In response, John and his team flew even higher. Not a single arrow could catch them. The 4 kept flying higher, and all the parties got concerned. The firemen thought it would be dangerous, and the Bloodsails felt that the disaster may be scarier. Give me that! One of the strong men among the Bloodsails took a spear from one of the soldiers and aimed at the flying Atronachs. He then activated his aura and focused it all on his right shoulder and arm. Once he locked on one of the flying Atronachs, he threw the spear with all the power he could muster. The spear flew forward, leaving behind an afterimage, and closed on the flying Atronachs in a second. Incoming! John shouted as he detected the spear, and all the flame Atronach hawks performed a maneuvering spin in the air, dodging the incoming attack. The target of the spear seemed to have been Joel's Atronach, but thanks to John's warning, everyone pulled it out untouched. John took the chance to use the telekinesis spell grab and caught the spear that flew behind them and started to pull it to him. On the other hand, and due to Joel's vengeful nature, she would never such a thing go. As soon as she stabilized her flame Atronach hawk, she took out her lever-action crossbow and opened the fire of retaliation. Even from her distance and altitude, he bolts found its target like a charm. The first bolt hit the man's shoulder, the second pinned his left foot. The following few claimed the life of all the guards around him. Fuck! Shield him! The Bloodsail's Patriarch shouted frantically and ordered the guards to protect the man with shields, as it seemed that the man was his direct descendant. However, Jelinar was shooting arrows filled with decisiveness and power. The lever-action crossbow that was designed by John, built by Wulfur, and enchanted by Alina's wind magic, was so fearsome that it could rival a sniper rifle in John's eyes. The luck was on the Bloodsails man, who was being protected right now, as he managed to be saved in time. Jelinar clicked her tongue in dissatisfaction, but John didn't let the chance go. He was still holding the spear with telekinesis, and he aimed it like that. He then launched the spear with all his power at the man. Meanwhile, between the Bloodsails' ranks, the Patriarch was checking on his son that barely made it back and turned around to look for a healer, but he heard a weird sound that made him look back at his son once again. The scene he saw almost made his hair go all white. The spear that his son just threw a while ago was penetrating his son's skull from the back and coming out from his mouth, pinning into the ground. The son's eyes were still open, and he was looking upward. It met with his father's line of sight and the atmosphere around that scene. Up in the air, John was still going higher and higher, followed by his team. How much altitude is that? We still aren't there yet. Their flight speed wasn't slow, and John was aiming for a very strong attack. The fire main chargers were a few seconds away from clashing with the enemy's front lines. Just as the two forces met, the charge of the cavalries was too strong that it caused the first and the second line of defense to get sent flying, and the firemen themselves were using the wave strategy and kept a charge after a charge. Meanwhile, John has reached the highest altitude his flame Atronach hawk can reach. Senior, this is too high. Don't worry, Joel and I have done something similar before. Alina didn't speak more when she learned that Jelinar and John had done that madness once. She would be damned if she can't do what Jelinar had done with John. Jelinar and Wulfur were a bit silent, but both were on the verge of crying. Wulfur had his reasons to try this move out, and Jelinar wanted to refute at the time when they got down from the throat of the world they were gliding. Okay, here we go. The scene from the ground looked crazy. Jonrad, Hilda, and Sigurd, as well as most of the main Firemane family, held their breath. These kids are crazy. That was the idea most of them had in mind. John's idea was a skydiving attack. John turned the 4-flame Atronak into their attack mode, which is the suicide attack. The 4 of them were supplied with enough magicka to turn into 4 meteor spells and were all sent down. John, Joel, Alina, and Wolfer were performing a skydive right at the moment. John had given them a brief introduction of how to perform a low-altitude skydive, and they were ready mentally for it at the beginning, but now things turned different. This is amazing. That was not John. That was Alina. She was going on spins around herself while immersing herself in the feeling of being in the air. Due to the use of magic, the rules of a normal skydiving weren't applied here. Alina used the wind magic to gather as much wind as she could while going down. If you need more magicka, I'll supply some to you. Yes, please. This part of the attack was totally depending on Alina. She was using her magic in a style that was going to cause a disaster if she casted it in normal circumstances, but John provided the mean to do it. Alina was gathering a lot of wind with this skydiving alone. And to tell the truth, Wolfer and Jelliner were her mostly for fun and to provide support later. On the ground, the onlookers were watching the skydive while not being able to do anything. It was a daring move, and its effect was something that they were trying not to imagine. Boom, 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 boom. The first thing that touched the ground was the 4 meteor spells that went down with speed. They targeted the right flank of the enemy forces, and that was the part where the undead horde of the Blackrock clan was positioned in. From the eyes of the onlookers, the whole black was covered with flames, as if hell itself broke open in that place. The flame magic meteor spells caused a large explosion that wiped out any and everything where it landed. The explosion took everyone by surprise. It was far from the Firemane chargers, but they felt the effect of the explosions, and some of the weak steeds couldn't calm down after what happened. Even the coming charge of the firemen stood still far away from the site, and most of the guards gulped on their saliva. Still, the big attack hasn't arrived yet. The other flank, where it was mostly made of Bloodsail's infantry, they started to notice the change above them. Look at that. Ismir. Is that really happening? Above them were the team of 4 skydivers that was going down at a crazy speed. Alina in the center, while being supported from all directions, and above her head was what can be described as a piece of the sky, or what would John describe as an accumulated air after being gathered all the way down and got pressurized to the max of Alina's ability. Senior, I don't think I can hold on much longer. Fine, we will land down in 3, 2, 1, now. Just as there were less 50 meters from the ground, Alina released all the pressured wind she could contain with her magic and with the supply of John's magicka. The target was the whole flank of the enemy's forces. Just as the pressured wind ball struck down, a massive wind happened. Senior, what tea? At $@ $carrot is that? Damn, hold tight. The air blast was far too strong than John anticipated. He could only reach out to his team and try to take the impact as one heavy object. Still, the blast that successfully took away the whole flank blasted some away and made some into a meat paste. That blast itself sent John and his team away. Damn it, I should have seen that one coming. John made preparation for landing and used Featherfall, spell 1, everyone in his party. They landed safely a couple of seconds later. Oh boy. But it seemed that the place where they landed was the center of the enemy forces. A pale old man stood looking at John directly in the eye while holding a bloodied spear in his hand. You, give me back my son. Shit, skydiving was a bad idea. Chapter 162, The Power Couple, into the volume. The fight kept going in the front. Now that the 2 flanks were crushed, the forces of the Bloodsails were facing a grave danger. But there were a certain 4 reckless brats in much greater danger right now. You, give me back my son. The old man charged at John with all his power and aimed the spear at John's heart. Disperse, John shouted, and the trio around him jumped away. John couldn't afford to evade escape as the man was going to chase his friends instead. He had to face him head on. John's best option was to block the spear, so he used Bound Shield spell on both hands, and 2 Spectral Shield appeared. The old man was shouting in anger, but his moves were skillful and magnificent. Every time he stabs or swings, John will be sent a few steps to the back. Fuck, what a monster. I can't even counterattack. It was too troublesome to move already, and John felt numbness in his arms. Each attack he received was akin to the anger of the Grim Reaper. One misstep, and he would lose his life. The man swung the spear left and right. John could duck and jump rather than blocking, but he suffered some scratches. The Bloodsail Patriarch was so determined to kill John no matter what. Once John showed a small opening, a relentless stab tore through the air, demanding the life of John. Got you, but it seemed that John showed an opening on purpose. Once the old man stabbed and also exposed a part of his defense, John managed to teleport behind the man and use a close-quarter flame magic spell to attack the man. The spell was called Flame Claw, and it was one of the things that John learned from Johnrad. It was equivalent to John's Thunder Cookie. Once the Fire Claw was unleashed, it would tear through anything and everything. John expected to see some blood, but the scene didn't come as he hoped. The old man managed to block the Fire Claw by only his arm. His arm seemed to have been reinforced by a purple aura. John wasn't sure what happened, but that aura seemed too dangerous to touch. He jumped away and faced the man carefully. The old man didn't seem as maddened as before and closed his eyes, letting out a breath, then opened his eyes and looked at John once again. I have fought the Curse Firemans for many years. I have tasted all kind of flame magic the Firemans could do and survived 100 battles against them. Yet one time, there was that brat who injured me with his flame magic. He is being called the King of Ash and is one of the bloody names of my clan. I knew his fire too damn well, but who would have thought that there will be another brat like him? John didn't respond to the old man's remorse about the past and focused on recovery. You are John Dare, the cursed Thane of Winterhold. John, isn't it? I see. The old man looked around himself and saw the state of his troops. It was a mess, and every one of them moved forward to stop the Fire Mane Chargers who were but a few seconds away. A boy who will be born between the blood and fire, carrying the wrath of the unspeakable anger that soars the sky. These were the words, weren't they? After all those years, you were alive all along. We couldn't kill you, no one could. The Firemans hid you, didn't they? The cursed child. John looked at the man and realized that his identity was exposed, so he didn't need to worry from then on. Not really glad to meet you. Name's John Hild. Yeah, I know. We kept paying the price of chasing your mother for 5 bloody years. Every time we faced her cursed fleet, she would scream for John Hild. Every damn time. Your name holds a meaning in the sea. They say once it was heard, the sea's water would turn red after the massacres your maddened mother would commit. John raised his brows. He didn't understand why Hilda was called the Bloody Hilda, and considered the name a bit disrespect for his mother compared to his father's cool name, but it seemed she deserved it some way or the other. I guess there is no room to talk now. We knew too damn well that if you survived, then all the enemies of the Firemans would be destroyed. And look where it has gotten you. Hee hee. True still, don't mock fate, boy. Fate favors the strong. Once you are not the strong anymore, fate can abandon you on a whim. What do you mean? The old man laughed, and his aura intensified. He stepped forward toward John, who stood his ground, and released his aura too. It means that as long as I kill you here and now, the fate will backfire on your clan, and my clan will thrive. Crazy old man. Dying. The Bloodsail's Patriarch said something vague, then charged at John with a heavy, killing intent. John, who was recovered for some time, used all his power to unleash the best magic he had, and took out the Skyforged saber from his side. The old man stabbed at John's face, and John deflected it with the back of his blade, then used lightning magic to counterattack, but the old man evaded the lightning before it was even cast. Damn, was that hockey? Dying. I'm not going to do so just because you are telling me to. John was counterattacking with magic, and jumping around while healing himself with magic. Not everyone may have noticed, but John's vast magicka pool and his overall control were noticed by some people around. Alina, who was fighting back-to-back with Jelliner and Wolfer while trying to open an escape path, halted for a minute and was kept looking at the high-speed battle that was happening not far away from her. So that is Senior when he is fighting seriously? John was indeed using the privilege of his ridiculous amount of magicka to turn the tide to his favor, but it was clear how the old patriarch of the Bloodsails was a skillful fighter. A bit far away, Ulfric Stormcloak and his people were watching from far away. Ralof's eyes were open wide. He realized the difference between himself and those crazy 4 youngsters who were fighting in the middle of the enemy forces on their own. More to that, he felt one of them was very familiar. That one over there, that is Wolfer. Ralof recognized Wolfer right away. Who is that? It is John Dare's teammate from the tournament. There is that one indeed. Where is John Dare then? Wasn't he announced as a new member of the Firemen's a month ago? It would have been fortunate if it was only the Stormcloak who watched the battle closely. In the dark corners of the area, some eyes and ears were watching the situation closely. It was lucky they couldn't hear the conversation of John and the Bloodsail Patriarch, but they were still paying a very close attention to the result of that fight. John Dare was a hot topic between many powers right now. Back to the fight, John used every trick in the book against the old beast that didn't let go of him. He also noticed that the old man started to use his bloodline power. The bloodline power of the Bloodsails is known as the Blood Boil. It can make the body stronger and the recovery faster. It may affect the sanity a bit, but it was a great ability. John could trap the old man a few times using some rune traps on the ground, but the endurance of that old man was ridiculous. He could pressure John to a corner no matter what John tried. Damn you. Just how much can you withstand, you fucking masochist? John's attacks have indeed landed on the old man, but the later was as lively as ever and attacked left and right without slowing down. It was so annoying to fight that old man like that. John's speed was his only remaining advantage, but his stamina wasn't as good as his magicka, and his healing magic couldn't restore stamina like Alina's. Sigh, what's left I can use? John asked himself. In his state, the Thursdayum was not the best idea. The Thursdayum words he can use were all area of effect attacks, and right now he was surrounded with both allies and enemies. There is that thing, but I'm not good with it just yet. John remembered some of Jonrad's and Hilda's words about how to use his bloodline limit. His bloodline limit should be identical to Jonrad's, but it was not an easy thing to wield. He looked right and left and saw that the fire main chargers were closing in, but the enemy ahead was much closer. His friends and loved ones were all around him. Jelliner, the feral girl he tamed, was fighting like the beast he trained her to be. Alina, the girl he fancied and made a strange connection with, was an all-rounder magic turret. Wolfer, his brother and partner in nearly every crime, was switching between weapons and sticking them in the bodies of his enemies like nothing. Oh boy, they are good. John smiled helplessly and shook his head. Guys, we'll hunt lots of dragons together. John, who had started smiling, said something really weird. Just kick that old man's ass first. Wolfer, who was in the least dangerous situation, refuted helplessly. Got it. Sorry, old man, but I will do a very boring thing right now. I am going to defeat you with the power of friendship like those lame ass animes. Oh, so he is finally using it. That was a bit fast. In some place, a serpent, a fox, and a scarab spoke all at the same time. A figure appeared from the shadow that resembled John came out and sat around them. The 4 then spoke one more time, as if they are one. It looks way better than what I anticipated. John's hand evoked flame magic once again. The flames on John's hands were not the usual flame magic he used. They were a bit white to blue with a hint of reading. It looked like the flame of a Bunsen burner, but it was clearly being controlled by John. Come at me. John taunted the old man, and the man wasn't even willing to stand back. It was then when John cast his magic normally. The flame that would take a bit to penetrate through the aura was spreading through it like fire and oil. Not a second passed, and the old man felt how strong and heavy these flame was. It indeed was like that day. The same flame that killed one of his sons 10 years ago when they tried to take revenge on the firemen. The infamous ashen flames. The old man realized what happened, and there was only one thing in his mind right now. Retreat. John's flames have returned him to his sanity and reminded him of the disaster that there is no way to avoid now. He didn't think of it, but he knew the firemen too damn well. He knew about them and their guardians. If it is like that, then the boy in front of him was just like his father, someone that the Dragon Guardian recognized. It was unrelated to how he found out John's identity at first, but those with the Dragon Guardian's protection are not to be messed with. Even though the cub in front of him was not yet the full-fledged lion to be feared, a cub was still a lion. He alone may not be enough anymore. If only he could spread the word, the old enemies of the firemen would rise up one more time like 15 years ago. He only needs to make the news go around. Just as John's first attack was over and the next was in the way, the old man whose body was clearly suffering a lot of burns jumped away and was about to run. Did I say you can run? Would not KSD. John knew he was an advantage and used the whirlwind sprint Thursday to charge past the old man and block his path. A voice master. Kid, I admit that you have grown too much. More than that is dangerous. The old man tried to gamble on one last attack, then make a run for it, but amidst the chaos, something happened. HAA. A strong war cry sounded, and a large white wolf came out charging, followed by a flame Atronach horse. On the wolf was a raging woman with a red fluttering hair, holding a big axe, and bloody red aura was enveloping her. The flame Atronach horse was a man holding a golden sword, and his aura was dense and resembled a real fire that covered his whole body and made him look like the Atronach he was on. Just as they passed past the old Bloodsail patriarch, he was cut to shreds and burnt to ashes in less than a second. The show of power was simply terrifying. The onlookers in the shadows, the onlookers on the peaks, Ulfric and his goons, John and his team, and those who witnessed the last charge, they all witnessed the power couple of the firemen in their best conditions fending off a youngster from their clan, and luckily, they were oblivious enough to forget about John right now. This news is much more important than anything right now. The bloody Hilda, the King of Ash. They have reappeared in public. Chapter 163 Development. A week later, somewhere in this world, a man sat next to his wife in the garden of their home. The man was listening to some report that was carried by his most trusted aide. Speak, Falk. What happened in our realm that made these guys send us a red letter? Falk Firebeard nodded and opened the letter that was sealed with red wax. A minute later, he approached the High King and started whispering. You said John Dare? Yes, the Thane of Winterhold. John Dare in the flesh was at the between the Firemane and Bloodsail clans. The rumor of him being adopted by them is true, and he disturbed our plan in Winterhold magnificently. Sigh, such a talent, and it goes for the hidden clans again. The High King sighed deeply. Aren't you satisfied with what you have now? You know my clan will always support you. The Queen whispered to her husband's ears, and he broke into a smile. Yes, I know. He spoke in a soft tone and nodded. Thank you for the report, Falk, and keep an eye on the situation. By your will, my king. Anything else? Don't give the people of Winterhold a tough time at the docks. Tell Lady Vittoria Vici to keep the relationship peaceful with the Dare Dragon Company. I will see to it at once. In a quiet room near a fireplace, a woman sat in her elegant battlemage robe. She was reading a report from a long time ago regarding some incident about the Great War. A man wearing a similar robe knocked on her door, and before entering and handing her another note. Madam Emissary, here is the report regarding the situation in Eastmarch. Thank you, you are dismissed. By your orders. The man turned around and left. The woman opened the note and started reading it carefully. She read it one more time and sighed. Estormo. Yes, Madam Emissary. Go and summon Encano. It seems the matter regarding Winterhold will give us a headache sooner than expected. In a closed room inside the Palace of Kings in Windhelm, 3 men were discussing some matters. This will give us a great advantage in the future. Now that Skald gave us his allegiance, Career will soon come running to our door. Galmar Stonefist said, while waving around the letter that was just delivered. I still don't think so. Jarl Ulfric spoke in his deep, dignified voice. Why is that, Jarl Ulfric? Don't you understand? Winterhold is not the realm of Career anymore. Jorlif, the steward of the palace, replied to Galmar. Not the realm of Career, isn't he The Dare Dragon Company is the one with the final say in Winterhold. Our spies have already confirmed that all the Hold Guards are loyal to John Dare, and Career is currently his puppet too. In fact, Solitude has tried to interfere lately, and it was said that Thane Eriker had a candidate that he wanted to push to the Jarlship to keep John Dare in check, but that man disappeared before even the spies of Solitude reach him. Jorlif said, what was in the report? All the concerned forces in Skyrim has also received a similar report. So this will leave us to do what? Galmar asked with annoyance. We will wait and see. John Dare is a major power now, not someone we can look down on. His allegiance is useful, but no one had any plans regarding Winterhold to begin with. Either he wants to play the game of politics or keep to himself. It is all up to him. The plans will go as usual for now. Ulfric said and left the room. Another conversation around the same topic in the Bard's College. Headmaster Viarmo, did you call for me? Yes, Lizette. Please come in. Was that Thane Eriker that walked out pushing everything in his way just now? Yes, it was him. Lizette giggled and shook her head helplessly. What then? Is he kicking us out of the building? Viarmo furrowed his eyes and glared at Lizette, whose behavior was a bit casual. High elves like him don't like to be talked to like that. Still, Lizette's behavior has changed a lot in the past year, that he would always glare at her, and she would say nothing. Sigh. He is disturbed by some matter in Winterhold and Eastmarch. Wants us to investigate it for him. Lizette wasn't wholeheartedly interested for many reasons. She has lost a lot of her respect to the man in front of her since she started becoming one of his birds following the events of the last year. Anyway, it will be your assignment. Viarmo said. Lizette seemed to be annoyed and wanted to refute, but Viarmo's words made her freeze. Your old friend, John Dare. He is doing some daring moves in eastern Skyrim, and it seemed that he had brought down a big project that Eriker had in mind for Winterhold. Lizette, whose face was motionless with uninterest, became wide awake and listened to Viarmo carefully. What is he doing? He has involved himself with the great Nordic clans. Lizette had some knowledge around the topic due to her nature of work. She then asked about some details, and Viarmo didn't hide anything that may make her interested. Lizette thought for a while and made a natural face. Maybe Winterhold can be interesting after all. I think they're big and has no proper bard right now. If a town has grown so much, then it will also grow bigger. Viarmo smiled and didn't say anything. Before you go, how is John Dare's friends that we have here? Sviti is a creative bard. She is an interesting person and one of the best we have. John Battleborn doesn't lose to her even though his style is too classic, according to how Sviti described it. So, how long will it take them to graduate then? Less than a year. I see. That indeed is a record. You may leave now. Viarmo watched Lizette going out and returned to his book right away. Sigh. How long will it continue? This piece, that's all he could think about. Sigh. This place is so boring, and the food is so bland. John was whining about the food. Human, give me. Yes, here you go. Your meow jesty. The food of John was eaten by Nefertiti again. John, Ongium has arrived. Jellinar came into the room and reported. Let him in. A while later, Ongium came in a room wearing a black cloak. Boss, did we really have to meet that way? It is okay. I have business in this city, and we have to keep a low profile after the recent trouble. I see. Here's a report from Alishka and the things you wanted from us. Ongium took out a note and a small chest. I see. You can sail to Winterhold any time you see fit. We will leave Windhelm, and we'll take the road back home. As you see, boss, Ongium said and left the room. In this room, a few figures were gathered around some table. There were John, Joel, Wolfer, Alina, Nerina, and Nefertiti. So this is the white file and the ingredients to fix it. I will go out tonight and attempt some experiments with a friend. And the note. John opened the note and skimmed through it with his eyes, then grinned and shook his head. What is that? Alina asked. It seemed that Alishka's girls have discovered some people trying to stir trouble in our town. The troublesome people were showed out, and the source of the noise was taken care of. John said to burn the paper to a fine powder with his ashen flame. Show off. Nerina snorted in disdain. John was not humble at all about the new power he possessed lately. The ashen flame was the core power of the Dragon Guardian and a mutation to the normal flame magic. It worked the same way, but was a bit costly on Magicka. Still, give us details. Wolfer was concerned about the matters in Winterhold. Some people from Solitude came to stir trouble and find an excuse to replace career with a new Jarl using our popularity. Alishka found the guy who was being supported and made him disappear at the bottom of the sea. I see. Who was the unlucky soul? Kralder. Kralder? Was it that the unremarkable guy who always tried to make friends with Archmage Savos? Yep, that's him. Actually, John was already very cautious about Kralder. That man was a citizen of Winterhold and one that could live an easy life during the past times. His family used to be powerful nobility in the past, but nothing was left after the Great Collapse to be proud about anymore. Also, one more remarkable thing about Kralder, that he will be appointed the Jarl anyway if the Empire won in the next civil war. Anyone should have had a positive view about Kralder, but John knew a small piece of information that made him very wary of Kralder. During the Civil War, if by any chance the Empire took over Winterhold, then lost it to the Stormcloaks, once again, Kralder, who is the Empire's agent, would simply withdraw from the town and would go to live in Eriker's house in Solitude. Now, this is a very dangerous piece of information for John. Eriker is one of the people that John don't like, and he is associated with the Thalmor. Having a tumor like that is something that John wouldn't want to have in his turf. The simplest way was to eliminate him a long time ago, but he wanted to keep Kralder monitored to get as much information as possible. Well, he was of no use anyway. I better get going now. John stood up, wore a dark cloak and a hood, then carried the chest and went out. Nefertiti jumped and hid herself in his clothes to go with him. He left directly to the white file store. Chapter 164, Repairing the White File, and some other crazy shit. Welcome, customer. May I interest you in some of our potions or ingredients? We have a new hair potion if you're missing on some hair, or a skin potion for. Quintus, who was behind the counter, switched to salesman mode. Quintus, it's me. John replied while sighing. You are? Quintus didn't seem to have recognized John. Quintus is an imperial young man from Cyrodiil who works at the White File Alchemy store. His master is Nurelian, a high elf who is obsessed with a certain artifact also known as the White File. It is a legendary bottle, forged in the days when Skyrim was just starting its Turno ice. A small container, made of the magically imbued snow that first fell on the throat of the world. It is said that the file will replenish whatever fluid is placed inside of it. John has met with Quintus half a year ago to make a deal with him about the white file, as John has already recovered it, but it was broken. John needed someone knowledgeable about the white file to fix it for him. Of course, due to John's sudden growth and all, he was hard to be recognized by anyone he met before now. Even some of his old acquaintances had problems trying to recognize him. John had to show the white file to Quintus and come up with a story to explain how he got this puffed up. Quintus, who was one of John's fans in the arena, became very excited after John's transformation. His champion is now stronger than ever in his eyes. So, how is the new High King tournament this year? John asked. I'm afraid that it was too underwhelming that the High King himself was too lazy to attend it, let alone other Jarls. Last year's competition was that of true champions, Sir John. I hope for some champions to rise up and make some change. You don't need to worry. Next year, I will arrange a team from Winterhold's best, and make some challenges. The High King tournament will be on fire next time. Sir John, your words are like the warm fire in a snowy night to my heart. I will wait with my all. John was serious about that matter too. Only a competition can bring out the best of talents, and a strong competitor roaming around will sure attract the eyes of the people, and challengers will appear to fight him. Also, Tamriel Continent had a tradition. Arenas and competitions are a necessary part of life. Some may argue, but John knew very well that the first game of the Elder Scrolls game series was called the Elder Scrolls Arena. It was supposed to be a tournament-based game at first before it would come as an RPG, but it was said that Winterhold would have a team called the Annihilators, and every city would have such a team. The reality wasn't much different, as each city has its arena or fighting pit, so it was still a very solid tradition. Enough with the fights now. We have a more important matter. Ah, indeed. This way, Sir John. Quintus led John in the back of the store, and they arrived at a laboratory. This is my workplace. I have asked my master about some enchanting techniques and arrived at some good answers. Good, let's start. The laboratory had a proper enchanting station and some excellent alchemy tools. It was a good opportunity to compare skills and exchange ideas between the two people around. Nefertiti was allowed to laze around. As a smart cat, she wouldn't go on tables and push things on the floor as long as she is fed. So she was left on guard duty. The work was about how to fix the white file. The main three ingredients were the powdered mammoth tusk, the briar heart, the unmelting snow from the throat of the world, and most importantly, the white file itself. To restore the white file, the unmelting snow was the necessary part to remake the broken part of the white file. The powdered mammoth tusk will be mixed with the unmelting snow, as it was an ivory that is as hard as iron, but the giants have found ways to make it yield. They're able to grind it down so fine that it can be infused into the lattice of packed snow. The finished material has the delicate nature of fresh powder snow, but the strength of the hardest steel. The last thing was the briar heart, and that was the most complicated process. The final tempering of the file was performed with a type of old magic that's been lost since the Dragon War back in the Merethic era star. The white file's wonder was in its power to convert energy to mass, but what John needed was the mean to take magicka from the surroundings and trap it into the enchantment. Why was so wondrous in John's eyes? The answer was another question. What is the only other thing that has the exact same function that can absorb magicka and store it or trap it? The answer was living beings. Not only them. The Daedra too could do the same function, even though their lives are a matter of argue between the scholars for the nature of their souls, but that's a matter for another discussion. Back to what is important, the living flesh can absorb magic from the heaven and earth and store it. No other scholar has reached the conclusion about the ability of the white file to have the ability to do such a thing other than John. With all that in mind, John could now move to the next stage. The creation of the new power source. Quintus, thank you and deliver my thanks to your master. Give him the white file and tell him I will be rude and visit him in the future to do more research. Excuse me now. I have a very important matter to attend to in Winterhold. John took his things in a hurry and carried Nefertiti, then ran out of the store. Hey, Sir John. Wait. Quintus called for John, but the latter moved in lightning speed and disappeared in thin air, leaving the white file in Quintus's hands. After teleporting away, John smiled and giggled. His gain this time was very huge. He copied most of the enchantments on the white file and was very sure of his achievement. Still, he had to let go of the white file to gain something much better. Why not hunt two birds with one stone when there's an opportunity? He thought. Chapter 165, Nerina's Trauma. Still, I'm not sure which is more amazing. Creating something from nothing can't be amazing because it is simply impossible. But converting matters and energies is the next level shit. Ouch. Hey, you kiss your mama with that mouth. Stop casting spells out of nowhere. and drink your tea before it gets cold. Oh, thank you. Shit, it is cold. TSK. This woman is a hypocrite. I keep explaining modern theories to her, and I get a telekinetic slap in the end. Well, at least the road is not boring. We headed out of Windhelm earlier this morning, and some new faces joined us. These were Patriarch Sigurd Moonblade and some of his men, as well as Freya and Bjorna, who were on a mission to Mordhau. The Moonblade clan stronghold is located in Winterhold. It is exactly in the western region of the hold south to Snowpoint Beacon and Hobbs Fall Cave. It is a very rocky area on a mountain, but I was aware of it because it is an area that Alina asked me not to send people there. Anyway, Sigurd was glaring at me all the time lately. For some reason, that old man didn't give me one chance to have a proper conversation with Alina. This Daughtercon old man is getting on my nerve. Father-in-law, would you like some herbal tea? Father-in-law, are you okay? You seem a bit dejected. I will murder you. The man gave off a scary aura for a second, but there was someone who was giving him the dare you smile behind me. I love it when Nurina is on my side. I could just go and kick a dragon's, but without worrying about my own. Anyway, after we reached the southern crossroad in Winterhold after 2 days of riding, we went to the north, and the Moonblade with the firemen's kept riding west. Alina joined her father and rode to her clan with him. She hasn't returned there for some time, so Nurina gave her a vacation for a few days. Now, heading north to Winterhold town were Nurin, Joel, Wolf, and me. This is basically our territory, so we were taking it easy. Still, something weird occurred. The wind howled and snow started flying everywhere. A storm? Well, this is Sun's Dawn, February. After all, let's find cover. We are in the middle of nowhere. Whistling Mine and the new village are just 1 hour ahead. We can make it. We all were riding flame Atronak horses, so it wasn't a tough trip anyway, but the snowstorm started affecting the performance of the flame Atronak horses. Okay, I'm doing it. Lock VHQ. Cough, the last word is so damn tricky. I had to use the clear skies Thursday to put down the storm, but I haven't made any progress with the last word core, which means summer. Mostly because I haven't seen a real summer in a long time, and it is hard to pull its effect out. Also, the word was so damn hard to use as a Thursday. Some words of power are harder than others to master, and core is the hardest one so far. Anyway, the snowstorm returned once again after a minute. We will arrive shortly anyway. Let's pick up the pace. I encouraged them to go ahead and try to use the Thursday one more time, but I couldn't shout. Nurina looked at me and tilted her head. Ahem, it seems that I need some more time, I said while smiling awkwardly. You never needed that long to rest from 2 words, Nurina said and seemed a bit worried. Never mind it. We can reach Whistling Mine normally now. Let's hurry. I tried not to worry her, but I felt strange myself. Wolf and Joel nodded and rode faster ahead. Wolf had his bear cub tied, carried on his back, and Nefertiti chose to ride with Joel for some reason. Nurina and I were riding slowly in the back. Time passed, and the storm became stronger. I tried to use the Thursday one more time, but with no result. Okay, this is not good. What? Nurina replied. I can't use the Thursday I don't know why, but it is not coming out. Nurina rode closer and held my shoulder. She let her magicka flow into me and tried to check something. She then opened her eyes wide and looked at me. John, you have been silenced. Silenced? What's she talking about? No one can silence me. Silence is a spell that locks the magic of the target. Through it, the target can't use any form of magic or anything related. But I can't be silenced. My magicka is far too strong to get, normally, silenced. What is going on here? How can you feel yourself being silenced? Nurina asked me and seemed worried. I don't know. How couldn't you feel any magic being cast around? This wasn't a good sign. I looked around, but where are Joel and Wolf? Nurina also looked around and didn't spot anyone. The storm was so intense for us to see more than 10 meters ahead. Here, you are good to go. Nurina removed the silencing state from me and cast protection around us. We were on high alert and started looking around with caution. Suddenly, Thud thud. We both fell on the ground. The hell? I was shocked. We weren't attacked. It was only our flame Atronak horses getting dispelled. The fuck is going on? Show yourself, scoundrel. Nurina regained her balance and lashed a lightning spell in anger that moved like a whip around us, but it also got dispelled. Shit. Silencing me without me noticing. Fooling Nurina's magic sense and dispelling her magic. Who on Nern can do that? I asked Nurina, who was back-to-back with me, but I got no answer. I looked at her and found her frozen in a shock with her eyes wide open. It wasn't easy, you know, locking his magic and sneaking on you, girl. Following where Nurina's eyes were looking, the source of the voice appeared from the snowstorm. It was a normal dark elf woman in some unremarkable clothes. What is that? Long time no see, girl. The woman walked forward and Nurina was still frozen in shock. She was a Dunmare with the same gray skin and red eyes, but her hair was ashen gray. Maybe due old age, but her movements weren't that of an old person. Maybe that's her appearance. John, Nurina spoke in a weak voice. What? Run. Run, Nurina said in a scared manner. Huh. John's thought process was still in a bewildered state. I said run. Don't look back and run. I don't understand. Meanwhile, the Dunmare woman was watching with an expressionless face. Are you two done? She spoke in a bored manner. Nurina and John got tensed up and looked at the woman with worried expressions and seemed to have been ready to go on a fight any time. Difference is, Nurina was very aware who was she up against. You will never get your hands on him. Nurina was trying to protect John with a desperate look on her face. She was resolved to go all out. It is a matter of whether I can or cannot, girl. The old woman waved her hand, and both John and Nurina got blown away from their places in a second. The woman looked at them, then sighed, and shook her head. She then walked towards them once again. 30 meters away, John and Nurina landed over each other and seemed all beaten up. This cough. Who is that monster? John stood up while staggering. If you already know that she's a monster, then hurry up and leave. The fuck are you talking about? I am not leaving. And weren't you the one who should have been a monster around these parts? Why is there someone who is kicking you around like that? TSK. Here she comes. John and Nurina got into battle mode once again and used their best spells to get ready. I will take left, you go right, John said, and started to close the gap between himself and the woman with his hammer in hand. Once he was 5 meters close, he teleported to the right, contrary to what he said, and swung his hammer. A shameless attack, huh? You taught him that? The woman didn't even look at him and took out a sword out of nowhere and blocked his hammer with ease. John was shocked at the woman's strength, but he already expected this woman to be a freak who can play with Nurina around. Once his attack got blocked, his hand moved to the Skyforged saber and drew it in an arc towards the woman. She snorted in disdain and twisted the hand that was holding her sword, then used it to block the saber too. She was blocking John's 2 trusty weapons with one hand and one weapon. John was vexed, as he didn't seem to be able to push the woman at all, so he twisted his waist, kicked at the woman's head from the back. The woman simply moved faster than anything John could do and was just behind John. She then used the side of her sword and smacked John's, but with it sending him away. Where did you find such a big child? He is so persistent. The woman asked Nurina, who was for some reason unable to move or talk. Oh, sorry. The woman noticed the abnormality, then flicked her finger, dispelling the paralyzing state from Nurina. You crazy old hag. Why don't you just die? Nurina, who got freed, released her magic in a massive lightning attack. You know my family, little girl. We never die. The woman waved her right hand coolly and blocked all Nurina's magic like it was nothing. Just get swallowed in oblivion already. Nurina put more effort into her magic and launched it like a bomb. Been there, boring by the way. The woman was blocking Nurina's massive spell like it was nothing. Fusaroda. John returned to the battle and shouted the unrelenting force. The woman clicked her tongue and moved away from the shout's path. This kid is indeed troublesome. To make me move twice. Who is he to you, girl? The woman looked at Nurina while aiming a spell at John, whose instincts told him that he's fucked up if he moved. Nurina looked at the woman with absolute anger and shouted, Alf, that's my son. The atmosphere settled down for a while and became a bit awkward. I see. The woman nodded her head, canceled her magic. I think we have a lot of catching up to do, the woman said and waved her hand. Both her and Nurina disappeared from sight. John all left alone. Chapter 166. The Fate of Heroes 1. John was all left alone. His sense of crisis was giving the red alert. Fuck me. We got defeated, and Nurina got kidnapped. This is officially the worst day of my life. The fuck did just happen? A strong state of denial controlled John's mind and tried to calm himself. It was the first time in his life to see the person who he looked up to the most get disadvantaged in magic of all things, then get kidnapped also by magic. This was way beyond his comfort zone. He never imagined anyone with the power to surpass the strongest mage he knew, and archwizard of all beings, and one of the most talented ones. His eyes were moving around like crazy, trying to figure out what to do. Okay, let's calm down. Calm down. Take it easy. The woman, she wasn't trying to harm Nurina. She was just screwing around with us. She was serious, but she wasn't murderous. Okay, this is not bad. A good start. John was calming himself and started rewinding what happened in his mind. Okay, first thing first. Nurina knew that woman. She knew her very well. She called her crazy old hag. So this is the legendary master that Nurina talks about. If I remember, the description matches. She is a dark elf with ashen gray hair. Good. Nurina's master won't harm Nurina. Physically, at least. John kept coming and going around the place Nurina and the other woman disappeared from. While he was moving around, John remembered a part of their conversation. Nurina called her Alf. Alf. Where did I hear that name before? System, search for Alf in my memories. No response. Alexa. Confirmed. The system responded, and John started to check out the place once again. One result found. Show it. The system opened a screen with some explanations. It said that Alf was a name that meant alpha in John's past life, and there was only one person with that name from his memories. What was really strange was that this memory didn't come from this life. It came from John's past life. That only meant that the woman Alf, who has a chance to be Nurina's master, was an NPC from the Elder Scrolls game series. Yes, the Elder Scroll game series, not the Elder Scroll v. Skyrim. The memory was related to the Elder Scrolls 3, Morrowind, and it seemed that Alf was an NPC from Morrowind. The only person was who fit the description, had her name written on the system screen, with some images from John's past life. John saw these results and froze in his place. This person was no ordinary person at all. Fuck me. Alexa, call the augur. Nurina and Alf appeared in a different location. It was a small room with a strange and alien structure. Nurina looked left and right frantically and finally recognized the place. Alf! No! Where's John? Alf looked at Nurina with a faint smile. She snorted and walked away to a strange-looking chair. You haven't changed at all. Still playing around with cute little stuff and pretending to be a mother. Nurina got tensed up by Alf's words and seemed to have remembered something very unpleasant. She glared at Alf, and the air around her changed. Where's he, Alf? If one single hair of his head got so much harm, you will never see the end of this. Nurina was angry to the limits, and the air around her started giving a black aura. Nurina, who was normally using magic, unleashed a powerful and terrible aura. Alf couldn't help but giggle with sharp eyes. Her red eyes stared coldly at Nurina. Look at you. You have grown up a little. Where is he? Nurina held back no more and put all her power into a very strong attack. The attack had both natures of magicka and aura. Alf raised her brows in admiration and moved her hand to face the attack with equal power. Both forces clashed, but Nurina fell short and her attack got handled by Alf. Nice! Linking the warrior energy and the magicka can be this interesting? Looks like you have made some progress, a pointless one though. After the energy in the room settled, Nerina seemed to be a bit tired, but Alf was completely unscathed. Tisk monster. Oh, thank you. By the way, your so-called son is fine. I left him behind. Nerina heard Alf's words, and relief appeared on her face. She sighed, and her tensed magicka calmed down. Still, she didn't let her guard down and glared at Alf once again. How did you find me? News to travel, dear. House Telvanni has eyes and ears everywhere. How hard is to not know about an archwizard in Winterhold's College? And what do you want? Nothing really. I was just doing some business in the area when I sensed a unique presence, so I just want to take a look. You were telling me that you're causing this mess because you only got interested after finding me. Huh? No. What? Not you. Not me. Disappointed? Screw you. Hee hee. I'm talking about the boy. About John? Alf nodded. Nerina felt a bit conflicted, but she managed to look composed. What attracted someone like you to John? You make it sound like a bad thing. You know what I mean? My father has seen a lot of that kid's kind, but I only managed to meet one and hear about another. Not that I was interested at that time, but meeting him was just a confirmation. Confirmation? What are you talking about? What do you mean by kind? Nerina stood up and urged Alf for an answer. Let's say that from all the children in the world, you picked up a boy with the fate to be a hero. Alf said something as if that was some big deal. Hero? We already know about that. Really? Yes. John is related to a prophecy that he will find 3 Elder Scrolls, and he is aware of it. Oh, I see, you got all wrong. Alf dismissed Nerina's words as if they were nothing. What do you mean by got it wrong? It is normal for heroes to be related to the Elder Scrolls. Majority of the scholars argue that any proclaimed hero with no Elder Scrolls in their tale is not really a hero, just some powerful person. It also doesn't mean that anyone related to an Elder Scroll is a hero. A hero or heroine is a mortal blessed and cursed from another point of view, with a special fate and the ability to rule their own destiny. Heroes are closely related to the prophecies revealed in the Elder Scrolls, but are not bound by them. They often grow to become far more powerful than most other mortals. Alf said, while searching between some books on a table beside her. Wait, they rule their own destiny? Didn't you say that Grandmaster himself can do that too? True. Father is too strong to be bound by the rules of the world. There's a certain threshold that needs to be passed to ignore the restrictions of the world. So, what does any of that have to do with John? Simple. As a so-called mother, what do you think of his talent and power? Nerina thought for a while. I think he is not yet a master wizard. Last year, he achieved a very rapid growth as he was focusing solely on studying and creating spells. He is halfway through the rank of an expert mage. His combat skills fall less behind. So magic is his strong point? Alf asked. Nerina shook her head. He is talented in the Thursdayum, the ancient voice of the dragons. Is there a talent in the Thursdayum nowadays? Last I heard was that only Dragonborn can be talented in such a thing. You saw him perform it. Well, I didn't expect anything less from my grand disciple. He's your disciple, right? My legacy disciple. You have a legacy? Girl, how old are you this year? 200? Alf held her stomach and started laughing. Nerina seemed dissatisfied about her master's reaction, but she didn't say anything. It was rare for Alf to laugh anyway. So, back to the topic. You said his talent was the Thursdayum? He is sure ignored. If he is Dragonborn, then the world will face a lot of trouble. And if he appeared in Skyrim, then that means that Skyrim will be the center of the attention the next few years. Just get to the point. What will John do by controlling his destiny? You made it sound like something scary. I don't remember teaching you that, so listen closely. Controlling one's own destiny means that there is no plan for the person himself. He is a rogue and an irregular in the world. He can break the world's law itself. Fate and destiny are the restrictions made by the world or the gods to bound people from destroying the world or causing too much trouble. Once this restriction is broken, The person has no limit to his growth or power, just like my 4,000 years old father. The world tends to cleanse itself from those irregulars with all sort of ways, like striking them with lightning in the middle of the day or causing a great accident to kill them through it. Most die before even breaking through the restrictions, but rarities like my father and some of the Sijic monks exist. Wait just a minute. Are you saying that John will be killed by the world because he's getting too strong? Nurina panicked and was about to jump on Alf and hold her by the nape of her clothes, but she managed to stay still. Well, the world isn't really that blind. Heroes are an exception. You see, heroes are the ones that save the world from falling into chaos. That is why the world itself allow a chosen few of the irregulars to exist as the so-called heroes. So this means that, don't interrupt me, you brat. Alf got a stick out of nowhere and hit Nurina on her head. Sorry, master. Nurina's old habit kicked in and held her head while apologizing before remembering that she was on bad terms with Alf. Sigh, here where I bring you the bad news. Once the heroes finish their trials and complete all the labors, the world turns on them and forces them to make a choice. You read the stories, you know how it ends. Chapter 167. The Fate of Heroes 2. Once the heroes finish their trials and complete all the labors, the world turns on them and forces them to make a choice. You read the stories, you know how it ends. Alf's word kept ringing in Nurina's head. She, who looked youthful despite her 200 years of age, seemed to have grown old all of a sudden. Alf still looked emotionless despite her disciples' heartbreaking expressions. She then sighed and spoke. That is why I asked you how strong he has become. To those who are heroes, the stronger they get, the nearer the time of their trial starts. Nurina could barely hold her tears and cleared her shrugged throat. Last year, he left Riften at the rank of apprentice mage. Once he traveled through Skyrim, he had a fortuitous encounter and grasped some basics of the ways of the Sijics. He then started focusing his all on how to increase his power and learn how to control it, but he faced a certain dilemma with his vitality. He found a way to cure himself and achieved a certain degree of balance and was recognized as an expert mage lately. All that in 1 year. Well, as a disciple of yours, he indeed shows a good promise. Still, he was very well versed in the Thursdayum. His talent is shocking. I don't want to jump to conclusions, but there's a chance that he may be a Dragonborn. If that's the case, then I won't be able to answer as many questions as the people who are well versed in the Thursdayum itself. Nurina understood what Alf was trying to say, as she was very aware of John's reincarnation and the Dragonborn prophecy. However, she chose to keep such information from Alf, as they are not her secrets to reveal. I understand, but let's focus on John's power for now. You said that the faster it increases, the sooner his trails become. What does that mean? It is not that hard to understand. Think of it as the world knows when such a disaster shall strike. The world prepares the heroes to face it, so their increase in power is mostly dependent on how the world needs them to be. There is no limits or boundaries to tell how strong a hero can reach as long as their trials require them to be that strong. But we can tell that the trial is drawing nearer as long as the young heroes are growing stronger. But when John finishes the trials, won't that mean that he will meet his demise? Probably. Which means it is not a certain thing, right? Yes, he can find a way. You know that my father has cured the hero of Morrowind of the Corpus disease by stopping the negative effects and allowing the positive effects of the Corpus to remain. Normally, immortality was one of the positive effects of the Corpus. Are you saying that the great Nerevarine is still alive until this day? Who knows? Just a few days before the Oblivion Crisis, he said he's going on some journey across the ocean to go and visit Akavir. Akavir! Point is that I don't know if he is alive or not. You could try and ask my father, but he will not answer it. Figures. Grandmaster always valued the privacy of his friends. Another example was the late champion of Cyrodiil, or what people know as the hero of Kvatch. He had 3 trials against the Daedric prince Maroon Dagon, the ancient immortal Yumaril the Unfeathered, and the Daedric prince Jiggelag. During the last trial, the hero was chosen to be Sheogorath, the Daedric prince of madness, to protect the Isles of Madness from Jiggelag, the Daedric prince of order. Sources say that the Sheogorath was actually the cursed form of Jiggelag, and the hero managed to remove the curse from Jiggelag, and thus keeping him free from becoming Sheogorath again. Jiggelag, again free to wander oblivion in his true form, disclosed his story to the champion and named him the new Prince of Madness before departing. You mean that the current-day Sheogorath is the hero of Cyrodiil? Wow. The story was not known except to a select few. Even a great character like Nerina didn't know that such a thing happened. She would be really mad when she finds out that John knew such a story from before, as he himself has seen it from the eyes of the player character during the even of the Elder Scrolls 4, Oblivion, but that's a story for another time. Point is, the last known two heroes managed to defy the world by an extreme action. I am not sure about the Nerevarine, but the hero of Kavach ascended to become the Mad God. Not a bad bargain in my opinion, Alf said, and waited for Nerina's answer. Nerina fell into deep thinking and nodded. So, you were saying that John's alarming increase of strength may mean that his trial will start sooner, but it also means that he needs to become much stronger to be able to resist the retaliation of the world when he finishes his trials. I'm glad you caught up, and that means I need to put him on the toughest training course I can provide. Now, you are completely looking at it the wrong way here. Alf stopped Nerina before thinking about something weird. What do you mean? If you try to interfere, you may end up hindering his path. What are you talking about? I have watched over him since he was less than a year old. I have taught him everything there is about magic. Sigh. Girl, you're deeply emotionally involved with him. Not only you see him as your disciple, but as your son as well. I don't understand. Isn't that the point? Of course not. Listen, you dumb fool. Heroes pass through 9 stages in their lives. They are the call to the adventure, when heroes get the higher calling to stand up and fight the injustice. The training, when heroes acquire a new mentor and gain a hold of their power. Crossing the threshold, when heroes claim their first success and realize their fate. The road to the trials, when heroes start their long journey to harness their power for good. The belly of the whale is when heroes face something up and beyond what they were prepared for, like when people try to use them or when they face something undefeatable. The seduction is when heroes get lured to do something they regret later on, and through it wisdom can be gained. The atonement of the Father is when heroes achieve something great and get ready for the final phases of their journey. The apotheosis is when the heroes finish their trials for good. And finally, the ultimate boon. And that's when the tale ends about how the heroes lived happily ever after. So, where I come in is the second stage, the training, right? I am his mentor. You are an idiot through and through. The boy didn't even get his calling yet. What makes you think you are to be his mentor? But didn't I just say that your interference will hinder him? You raised him since he was less than a year old, as you said. Don't you see? That child is brave and all, but he grew up while being protected by you. He became fairly decent in terms of power, and normal dangers can't affect him, but he grew up safely. Wait, is that my fault now? Whose fault is it? If he doesn't suffer, he won't learn any life lesson that makes him stronger both in mentality and reality. You don't know John, and you don't know shit. Alf and Nerina started a staring contest, but it was Nerina who averted her eyes away at the end. Damn it, what should I do? You just simply have to let him go. Order him to go on a journey to widen his knowledge and experience new things. Alf suggested nonchalantly while looking away. Nerina, however, looked at Alf and narrowed her eyes. The same way you let me go? Alf closed her eyes and didn't respond. Why are you telling me this anyway? Of all people, I expected you to care the least about John. The things you've done to me in the past. I've never forgotten them. Alf shook her head helplessly. She looked at Nerina's eyes. You were 5, right? When I took you in, you were 5. It was in the Red Year, when Vanderfell erupted. If I remember correctly, you were drifted on this island and barely lived. Ups insisted that she can save your life and nursed you back to health. Yet all you wanted was to go back to your family. Both you and I remember how that ended up. It was Nurena's turn to be silent. Well, I appreciated the respect that you showed back then. You are not a bad talent yourself. It made me think of how it. Old hag, I have heard that story like 1,000 times already. Really? Do I need to mention that I lived through it too? Oh, well, I was about to mention the parts that annoyed me the most. Like your overflowing motherly instincts. Alf said in an annoyed tone. Nurena seemed to have remembered something unpleasant. And when you killed Darla, remember what you said? Dear, having a pet doesn't make you its mother. You had to learn that. By killing a pet of an 8-year-old kid, Nurena's eyes were glaring daggers at Alf, who was not affected, even feeling bad. You were always a cold-blooded hag. Nurena said that and walked away to the door's room. Once she reached it, she remembered where she was halted her pace. To get back to where she left John, she needs to teleport a distance that was beyond her power. She wanted to look back at Alf and tell her to get her back, but she just stopped without turning around. Alf was grinning because of the situation and wanted to tease Nurena. By the way, when I appeared before you in that kid, did you think I was going to kill him too? You're 196 this year. I allow you to take a son or whatever, you know? Alf started mocking Nurena. Cold-hearted bitch. Nurena cursed without looking back. Well, it is hard to catch up on any emotions when you are born as the eldest daughter and from a jar. If you want hugs, you can go find ups or bait. Delt went out on an errand. Nurena snorted at Alf's words. I'll go pay respect to them and to Grandmaster Divaith as well. He's busy. Nurena didn't reply and went out of the room. A while later, Nurena returned to Alf, who was waiting with a book in hand. How was it? Good. Grandmaster gave me some candy. Be careful. It may be some 100-year-old sweet bar or something. I'll keep that in mind. Can I go back now? Winterhold. Yes. Well, I have some business I need to do around the place, so we'll be going together. Why do you live there anyway? That cousin of mine. You remember him? Savos. That unremarkable and untalented kid. Well, he happens to be the Archmage of Winterhold, so he gave me a place if I give some classes per month. Wait, that's Savos at the Archmage of Winterhold? I know, right? Can you believe it? Damn, who got kicked in the head by a donkey and allowed him to be an Archmage? Don't ask me. Let's just go. Alf nodded and was about to cast a spell, but suddenly she stopped and opened her eyes wide. Impressive, Nurena was about to ask, but she suddenly felt the changes in the space around the room. Wait, Alf, is someone teleporting here? Not just teleporting here. Someone actually managed to trace my magic and reverse it to find their way to this room. Reverse a spell created by a 4,000-year-old sorcerer? How exciting. Alf was totally excited about whatever or whoever that was going to arrive. Nurena understood the meaning of Alf's words and hid behind her. This must be some other insane monster. I want no part into this, she thought. A few seconds later, a third figure appeared in the room. It was a well-armored person holding a strange cylinder object in his hand. He looked around, and his eyes landed on Alf. Alf, FYR. I know who you are, and I am not afraid of you. Where is Nurena? Chapter 168. Welcome to Morrowind. Alf, FYR. I know who you are, and I'm not afraid of you. Where is Nurena? The armored person set his eyes on Alf and aimed the cylinder object at her. Oh boy. Nurena realized what is going on and broke into cold sweat. Oblivion take me. Did that kid just teleport all the way from Skyrim to Morrowind by reversing my spell? Morrowind? The armored man tilted his head, not understanding what is going on. He then realized that the strange shape of the room around him and looked left and right. It seemed as if he was in the inside of a tree with all the organic walls around him. The place really felt pretty much alive. Welcome to Morrowind, Brack. 10 seconds of silence followed Alf's statement. And John normally freaked out. He looked left and right and checked the place around him again. John has never been into one of these houses before, but he pretty much had an idea what was that. He is inside a Telvanni tower. Telvanni towers were a unique type of houses located in Morrowind. Rather than being constructed, these towers have been planted by House Telvanni from a special kind of fungi that grows by their special means. These towers were, in the end, some large mushrooms that members of House Telvanni and the people work for them lived in. And he found himself into one. Wait a second. What is going on? John was processing a lot of information to the point that his head started giving errors. I'm the one who wants to ask you. How did you arrive here? Nurina walked from behind Alf and looked at John. John saw Nurina and remembered his objective. Oh, right. I came to save you. Hurry up. Teleport us out of here. Wah. I can't. What? You can't? Wait a second. Alf F. Wire. What have you done to her? I didn't do anything. Alf replied with no interest whatsoever. Denial won't help you. I will avenge Nurina. Vengeance will be swift. Vengeance will be painful. It will be delicious, John declared as he moved his armored arms and carried the cylinder object on his shoulder. Get ready. Fire. The cylinder object started to glow, and a lot of magicka got condensed in its center. Alf, who was normally not interested, raised her brows and grinned. She saw a strange magic formation that looked rather creative and connected the armor and the cylinder object. She just waved her hand, and a thin string of lightning dashed at John and struck his armor. Before he shows off his new invention, John and his armor flew across the room and crashed into a shelf. A mound of books fell on him, and he got buried under them. John, no! Nurina freaked out and ran toward John. Perfect. Now I have two idiots to take care of. Star. Morrowind, huh? How the hell did I arrive here, you ask? Well, let's start from the time Nurina got taken away by Alf. The scene unfolds on me, standing in the middle of the snowstorm alone like an idiot. I was greatly taken aback by Alf's show of power and how she managed to even take on Nurina with ease. I mean, Nurina is an archwizard for fuck's sake. When I started rewinding the fight in my mind, it was rather weird how Alf managed to block my magic by silencing me. You see, magicka is one sort of energy, and it comes from the soul, which is the source of all energies in the body, like the magic energy, magicka, life energy, vitality, spirit energy, vital essence, and all the other known and unknown energies. When mages use a spell like silence, they block the link between the astral body, which is the container of the soul, and the physical body, which is the medium to transfer energies in and out. Still, Alf's spell was rather unique, as it blocked most of the energy transferring points between the astral and the physical bodies, which were rather like a piece of art. This was above and beyond any magic I know. Normally, it wasn't that hard of a spell, but there were some places where I felt like I was rather ignorant about what was going on. It was a strange spell by all means. Even when Nurina lifted my silent state, it took her time. This made me go into an alarmed state about what kind of power that woman Alf used, and where I could actually link her to the name FYR by the help of the system. Alf FYR is the master of Nurina, which means she is my grandmaster. I wasn't sure if I should feel honored or terrified. Who is Alf FYR, you ask? Well, I will gladly answer you. First and foremost, she is the daughter of Divaith FYR, the oldest and the most honorable member of the Great House Telvanni, one of the 5 greatest houses in Morrowind, the country next door to the east. Alf FYR was an NPC in the Elder Scrolls 3, Morrowind, and I heard that she appeared in the Elder Scrolls Legends too. Now let's talk about Divaith FYR. He is an absurd being. I called him a being, because the word mortal is not a fitting word to call a 4,000 years old sorcerer. More to that, he was a part of the Sijic order, but he left it because he didn't agree with their teachings. He met the Vistage and the Nerevarine, 2 hero senpais of mine that sadly will never notice me. Now back to Grandmaster Alf FYR. Alf is the eldest daughter of Divaith FYR. She has 3 sisters who are Bait, Del, and Ups FYR. Technically, their names are Alpha, Beta, Delta, and Epsilon from the Greek alphabet, and you may ask, where is the Gamma, which should be between Beta and Delta? Well, the answer may be because Gamma was a failed experiment. Yes, I said experiment. Why did I say experiment? Well, I'm glad you asked because here's the part that will make people get a bit sick. The four FYR sisters are rather weird because, as Divaith FYR himself stated, they are his clones. To make it easier to understand, Divaith FYR successfully cloned himself 4 times, and each time to change the gender of the clone to make them the female versions of himself. I'm not sure how to feel about that, but I think with Divaith FYR and his gender-bent clones, plus the feminist giants, and all the weird people other than them in this world will make it easier for the LGBT community to spread their influence around here. Not under my nose, though. My motto is no vegans, LGBT, and dubbed anime watchers in my turf. Jokes aside, one of the weirder things about Divaith FYR and his daughters that despite calling them his daughters, he also called them his wives. Not sure what is the reason for that, but if you're thinking of I am thinking, then someone has actually found a way to make it the phrase "go fuck yourself" achievable in real life. Anyway, I was not in the right mood to stand here and do nothing. I immediately contacted the augur and asked him for some help on how to trace a teleportation spell. Also, I had to ride back to Winterhold in less than an hour. I had to conjure a flame Atronach hawk and use all the speed spell I have to make it go as fast as possible to Winterhold. A dangerous but effective method. Once I arrived, I only needed to drag out an experimental weapon wolf, and I worked on. It was a defect project, but it could deal a strong amount of damage. The design was a massive piece of armor made from orichalcum connected to a power source, which was 3 black soul gems. The weapon that it carried was a magic cannon like the ones on the ship. The augur then arrived at an answer on how to trace a teleportation spell by reading the natural law of the space around the teleportation area, which means I had to return to the same spot where Alf FYR teleported away to heaven knows where. Returning back wasn't a simple task. With the weight of the armor, I had to use a cart and transport it using flame Atronach horses. And by the way, Wolf and Joel have barely arrived at Winterhold when I was leaving back to the location once again. I had to give a brief summary and apologize to Joel, who insisted on following me. Anyway, after I arrived, things got rather weird. It was a cumbersome task to read the natural law of the space around the area. The augur made it sound like an easy task, but it was rather so freaking hard. Once I made the first contact of the space magica in the location, I felt that it was one long-distance teleportation that I don't know where it ended. The augur told me not to do it, but I had no choice. Some may argue that Nurina may be in no danger or whatever, but those who are aware with dark elven nobles should know how ruthless they are. Kidnapping people was actually something they did openly, so I had to risk it for Nurina. I may not know where will I end up teleporting to, but it won't be that far, right? Maybe a dungeon near Windhelm at the very most. I myself can't teleport more than 100 meters with all my magica. The augur suggested to use some Grand Soul gems instead of my magica, which was rather wasteful, so I brought 10 filled Grand Soul gems with me. After I constructed the teleportation runes, I aligned the soul gems around it and let the spell be cast. But for some reason, I ended up in Morrowind, Intel FYR to be exact, home of Divaith FYR, the oldest known living person in the world. Chapter 169, A Small Challenge 1. A trip to Morrowind was certainly unexpected. John was greatly taken aback, but he didn't let the surprise ruin his sense of adventure. How usual was it for someone to blink their eyes, and in the next second, they find themselves halfway across the continent? Even though it was mysterious and all, he still insisted to see the outside of Tel FYR. This is the Hall of FYR, and down there is the Onyx Hall. You can only access here through the levitation spell, but I guess teleportation can be counted as of access. Alf explained the whole place in a few words with annoyance. Oh, so this is in the Hall of FYR. How amazing. But to think one of the legendary FYR sisters is my Grandmaster. I'm not sure what is more amazing around here. The sparkling in John's eyes was increasing by every realization he comes across. Nurina, you disciple is glowing. Yes, he's always like that when there is a new thing to discover. How could a gloomy kid like you bring up a glowing kid like him? It depends on the teacher, someone like you wouldn't understand. Nurina replied, coldly at Alf, who snorted in disdain. "Can I see the place?" John asked. "Don't climb any higher level than this. Beyond this room is Lord Divaith's personal area." Alf gave John a warning before he gets out. "Wait, Great Grandmaster Divaith FYR is here?" "Yes, he gave me some candy," Nerina replied with a smile. "I told you it is 100 years old thing." While the two dark elves started arguing, John wandered off to see the rest of the place. "So, what do you think? He is a brat with a good talent indeed. His path in magic may be smooth because his innate hero ability, but he is more to that, as you said." "Foo-foo. I'm glad you noticed. I raised him to—" "Shut up, dear. I'm talking about the formation on the armor he came with." "Formation? Didn't you know? He made a runic circle using a magical conductive material. I didn't know where he got the idea from, but it is something that is a secret technique between the magic craftsmen." "You're talking about these wires coming out from that armor." "Yes, it is not bad, but he didn't put any effort to protect them. Maybe because the product wasn't complete yet." Nerina started explaining the situation of John's inventions and the weird creativities he comes up with. She also explained the situation about Winterhold and how John became the king of the turf. For a hero, he is acting more like a scoundrel, even though he is doing some good deeds here and there. Nerina said, "Was the other heroes like that?" "Not sure. They all had the same pattern of the hero thing, but it is not really our field of interest. Go ask some historian." Nerina nodded and started thinking for a while. "What about the heroes other than the Nerevarine and the hero of Kavach? How'd they end up?" "Interesting question. Let's see. Many heroes had an unknown fate as they all disappeared as if Nirn itself swallowed them. The Vistage, Cyrus the Redguard, the Eternal Champion, the Apprentice of Battlespire, the Master Tunnel Rat, the hero of Dawnstar, and the Soul of Conflict. These were the one that got confirmed as heroes who passed through the 9 stages and finished their labors. All heroes are from the Elder Scroll game series. That many? But isn't there anything that states how these people lived after their labors? Not a single thing, I am afraid. Not even a single person came and claimed to be the descendant of any of those. If I were you, I wouldn't keep this to myself. Make the kid understand what kind of situation he is in." Nerina fell silent, but nodded in the end. Later on, John returned to Nerina and Alf accompanied by 2 dark elven women. They both looked like Alf. "So, we have 4th-generation disciple. Haven't seen one in years." One of them spoke directly to Nerina. "Ups, did John cause any trouble?" "No, he is as polite as a little child." The other woman spoke while holding John's arms. John himself looked a bit awkward. "So, have you seen the place?" "Yes, it is impressive beyond belief. The fungi growing everywhere and the Dunmery style is sure amazing." "Good. I'm glad you got along with Ups and Bait too." Nerina made a relieved face. "Well, he rather asked about something strange." Bait spoke. "The Corprosarium." Ups said. Alf and Nerina looked at John with wide eyes. "How did you hear about that?" Nerina asked. "Are you kidding me? Those who know about Tel FYR must know 3 things. Lord FYR, the 4 daughters of Lord FYR, and the Corprosarium. The Corprosarium is an underground series of caverns found beneath Tel FYR. This was where citizens affected by Corpus can go to live with other similarly affected people to get treated by Divaith FYR back in 3 times 10 to the power of negative 426. It also served as Divaith FYR's playground. Any 4,000 years old person needs verification if one was found will soon develop a hobby to pass their time with. Divaith FYR was a collector and he loved sport. Back then, the Corprosarium was a dungeon where he hid some of his treasures. He then invited thieves from any place to come and plunder his dungeon, if they could, of course. As one can expect, the Corprosarium was filled deadly traps on the standards of a 4,000 years old mage, and no need to mention the ones afflicted with the Corpus, who were pretty much like those biohazardous zombies. John showed off his otherworldly knowledge that made the others shake their heads while sighing. "I thought that place will forever be forgotten," Bait FYR said. "Forgotten? Why? What happened to the place?" John asked. After the events that followed the Corpus disease, the place was cleansed to continue and serve as Lord FYR's dungeon. Not a few years passed, and the Red Year arrived. We had to clear the dungeon from the traps ourselves to provide the place for the refugees that sought shelter on the island, as it was protected by our magic. After that, Lord FYR tried to open the dungeon again, but Morrowind was pretty much recovering from the disaster of Vardenfell's eruption. Not long later, the Argonians invaded Morrowind, and House Telvanni almost got annihilated, but most of the mage lords managed to survive. Tel FYR was normally not affected by most of these events, but from year to year, people forgot who was the lord of the place, and some scum tried to take hold of the place. No need to mention what happened to them. Oh, I see. It indeed was a mess for House Telvanni during the last 200 years. It faced utter destruction, and John was very well aware of the stories. He even knew something much better. The last living heir of House Telvanni lives, and he is in Skyrim, but John had no interest in helping the Telvanni or that last heir. More to that, the Telvanni mage lords are still alive, and that includes Divaith FYR and Nelith, who are both long-living monsters. John started talking with the FYR sister and showed them a lot of respect, as one of them was his grandmaster and the others were people on par with her. So, I have a question. He looked at Alf, and she nodded. Back when you ambushed us, you used a silent spell to prevent me from using the Thursday. Question is, how on Nirn can the connection between the astral form and the physical form be severed to this extent without killing me? Alf nodded. Good question. I'm surprised that you noticed. Well, the answer is simple and quite boring. From the beginning, I knew which position should I strike to cut the link that transfers the vital essence in and out of your astral body. John was surprised by the daring answer. Is Grandmaster trying to say that you have studied these positions that connect the physical and the astral bodies in the living mortals? Yes, they were an interesting subject. Did you try to study them? Yes, I tried hard. Up until now, I only found 10 of them, and only 4 are related to the magic energy, while the rest were related to the life energy and some other form of energy I'm not aware of. Not bad, but that's still too far from the actual number. Alf waved her hand, and a book flew out of one shelf and clashed at John's chest. Study this. John held the book and opened the first page. It gave him that same feeling when Nurina gave John spell tomes for the first time. What is that about? Nurina asked Alf. It is a book that talks about a network of channels in the body through which heaven and earth energies flows. Just like blood vessels, but for energies instead of blood. Nurina nodded while learning new things herself. For a talented mage, she was never concerned with the training of her energy as it grew stronger with age and skill, unlike John, who had fetish on training anything that can be trained. These drawings, John noticed something about the book and pointed it out. What's with them? Aren't these the acupuncture points? To John's question, Alf was taken aback. Only the Sigics of Artium call them that. How do you know about that? John clearly saw similar drawings in his past life, but he kept that to himself. I read a medicine book once that had a similar drawing and called them by that name. Nothing much. He managed to say that lie that wasn't completely a lie as coolly as possible to not draw much attention. However, in his mind, a storm was raging around. Words like spiritual roots, spirit core, spirit vessels, 8 extraordinary channels, 12 principal channels, the acupoints that connected them. Damn, this book is a treasure in my hands. This is like putting 2 jet engines on a dragon. His expressions were mixing between smiles and wonder and twitching from time to time. Yes, he is as creepy as us, Ups FYR said and giggled over the fact. Unlike Alf, who was mostly cold and not caring, Ups was kind and easygoing. Bait, however, seemed to be cunning and crafty. Say, John, would you like to go into the Corpusarium and try your luck? Bait suggested in a low tone. Everyone in the room was taken aback. Can I? John asked and almost jumped up. No, it is dangerous. Nurina stood up. Don't worry. Last time anyone had been there was a long time ago. Even Lord FYR isn't expecting any challengers at all. You may take out something good while gaining a chance to pique the interest of Lord FYR himself. He would be delighted if he finds out about the talent of his latest 4th generation. No, I don't appro. Nurina was about to break into a tantrum, but she soon heard a voice in her head. Remember what we talked about earlier? You are protecting him way too much. That was Alv's voice in her head. You don't need to worry. You can have this scroll. If you ever face something you can't handle, the scroll will teleport you out to the Onyx Hall. Bait took out a scroll. It's just a small challenge, kid. Want to show us what you are made of? Alf challenged John. Well, if it was put that way, then I am in. Chapter 170, A Small Challenge Too. Before I go into the dungeon, I asked the Grandmaster Alf about the place and its layout. I wasn't told much, but it seems the place wasn't being maintained anyway. When I asked about the Corpus victims that were quarantined in the Corpusarium, I learned that those who were impossible to be cured were all put to a merciful death. Still, the one thing I was interested in the most was a certain man called Dragonblooded, one of the inmates in the Corpusarium that appeared in the Elder Scrolls III, Morrowind. Why did I ask about that person in particular? Well, here where things get interesting. Dragonblooded is the last known living Dwemer. He was a good friend of Divaith FYR and a very powerful and ancient mage who oversees the Corpusarium. He was sick and his body got bloated from the effects of Corpus disease, so he could only move around with the help of a modified Centurion spider's lower half. He wasn't only the last known dwarf, he is also the author of a famous book called Tamrielic Lore, and before the disappearance of the dwarves, Bagarn was a master crafter in the service of the chief tonal architect, Lord Kagranak, the one that is most likely to be the main responsible for the disappearance of his own race. Dragonblooded, https://ibb /h7ps/7c. The reason why Dragonblooded survived the fate of the dwarves was that he was on a trip to an outer realm from Nirn when the accident happened, and when he returned, he was all alone. This is one of the most heartbreaking stories. As for when he returned and started looking for his people, he only got the corpus instead and lived in a prison-like body, as he stated. When I asked the FYR sisters about him, I was received with surprised faces, as it seemed that the matter about him was kept a bit of a private matter in this household. But I learned later on that Lord Divaith FYR had taken Dragonblooded to an outer realm for the sake of healing and researching the disappearance of the dwarves. Lord FYR didn't say anything about Yagrum to his daughters, as he seemed to be a person who values the privacy of his friends. Or rather, as an author of a fanfiction, I don't want to delve into some parts of the lore that I can't really research or explain. I hope the running and coming game series give us some proper answers in the future. As I took my safety measures, I readied myself to enter the Corpusarium. The entrance was just like how it was before in Morrowind the game, just in deepest part of the Onyx Hall. Bait unsealed the door for me, and Ups went to inform Lord FYR that the dungeon was being challenged by a 4th-generation disciple. She was sure he would be pleased and watch from his place. It was his hobby to watch people challenge his dungeon after all. I, on the other hand, got a bit nervous after learning that he would be watching. I had to do my bestest under his watchful eyes. But as Catatusker, I had a lot of pride in my skills as a thief. I know some people in Rift Inn who will haunt me if I showed a mediocre performance. With all that in mind, I took a strong breath and passed through the door. The Corpusarium, a massive series of caverns under Tell, FYR. The place was dark and was very damp. It seems some parts of the caves have been heavily damaged due to the events of the Red Year around 200 years ago, but it was all still in a good shape. John can go all out if he met any enemy, without worrying about the structure above. The first thing that came to view was the large cave tunnel that had a crazy number of roots coming from above. John just took a few steps in, and one of these roots suddenly attacked him. Calmly, John shaped his hand as a blade and used a weaker version of Thunder Cookie to retaliate at the rude root. Turned out it was not a root, but some sort of snake that liked to blend in with the roots to catch skeevers and rats. John examined the rude snake and judged it as some sort of a creature that is native to Morrowind, which he didn't know much about, as its scales felt like it was made of bone. The world is big. John threw the dead snake with no interest and spread his detection magic through every dangling root or anything that may be of threat. Sure enough, that wasn't the only snake, and it seemed to be that there is quite a lot of company here. John only needed to point his hand forward and shoot a series of lightning strikes, which were being cast as fast as some machine gun shots. Soon after, some of the small pests around were burst into a nasty goo by the lightning, and the others realized John as a threat that can't be dealt with and escaped right away. John was acting as cool and dignified as possible in case he was being watched by some magical mean or anything. After he advanced forward while being wary of every step and every shadow, John felt some weird movements from the ground around him and halted his steps. He was still standing on his place on his toes when a strange hand came from the ground and tried to catch him. John nimbly jumped back and unleashed green madness aura to force the creature out. Strange enough, the creature wasn't affected by John's aura and moved in its own pace until it stood on the ground ahead of John. An ash spawn? What is one of those doing here? John recognized the creature right away, as it was not from Morrowind, the game, but it was rather from Skyrim, the game, which he was rather more familiar with. It was introduced in the DLC expansion Dragonborn as humanoid creatures that looked like as if been made from earth or rather ash. It also had red eyes and veins all over its body. This was rather a unique ash creature as it appeared after the eruption of the Red Mountain Vardenfell and was only seen in Solstheim. John got confused for a second because there was no news about it being in Morrowind, but he decided to go with the kill now ask later strategy. The ash spawn was a flame-based creature, so it used it to attack and had immunity to it, so John was still mainly using lightning attacks. The creature was tough and resilient as it may contain minerals in its body, so taking it down was a headache with normal means. John used lightning attacks to disintegrate the joints of its body and ban it from moving or attacking with magic. Soon after, he finished clearing the place after killing a few of the ash spawns. He kept looking around the area and realized that there were strange stones hidden in the walls and the floor. He carefully dug out one and was immediately understood what is going on. Heartstones? So that is the reason. The heartstones are a mineral only found in Solstheim too. It carried some similar features to the ash spawns, like having the same origin, which was the Red Mountain, and the same looks as it was a stone with a hint of red glow all over it. So this is another one of Lord FYR's trap. I see. He brought heartstones from Solstheim and planted them here and provided ash from the surroundings to create ash spawns. How cunning. If someone other than me who stupidly charged at the ash spawns with their resilient bodies or used flame magic at them, it wouldn't have ended well for them. There were indeed a lot of traps in the area, but it was easy to go past them if the person was on high alert, knowledgeable, and resourceful. I cleared another ash spawn trap, then decided to use the spell that I later learned, the levitation spell. The reason why I didn't want to learn that spell was that how slow it is, and it was actually very banned around the Empire. The Imperial Legion considered it a very dangerous spell, as it was not that hard to master. A nation like Morrowind gained its independence from the Empire by creating a legion of flying soldiers and obliterated the Imperial Legion. For that reason, a law like the Levitation Act was made as humans themselves weren't that great at using levitation magic. I also didn't want anyone to learn that I used that spell, even though I can use the Flame Atronach Hawk spell. I know some people who might try to make problems for me if they know I can use it, so I kept it for later. Anyway, I have decided to learn it recently, and this is my first time to use it in action. It consumed a lot of magicka for sure, but I wasn't disadvantaged at all. I rose up in the air to avoid all the traps on the ground and eliminate traps without effort. I found some annoying ash hoppers and suicidal spiders that exploded at death, making toxic gases. The place was rather more annoying than dangerous, but I soon found a real monster to fight. In an area filled with moss and water, a scary reptilian creature jumped out of nowhere and opened wide its massive mouth to swallow me. I instantly teleported away while keeping myself in the air. After taking a better look at the thing that attacked me, I felt a sudden headache as soon as I confirmed its identity. It is a kagudi. What is a kagudi? Well, it's an ugly bipedal reptilian with no forelimbs. It is just two strong legs, a torso, and one scary head with two long tusks coming from it. A kagudi https://ibb co/GRT 9 XLD. It is a fierce creature with high hostility and unending hunger. I can just teleport away, but I found a wooden box stuck to the wall on the other side of the area. It seemed I at least found something, but I have to defeat its guardian. Sigh. Very well. Come at me, bro. Chapter 171. A Small Challenge Gone Big. Narina's POV. We were waiting for John outside the entrance of the corporisarium. He went in there an hour ago, and it seemed that there's no problem so far. I don't know how exactly did he find out about the corporisarium and all this knowledge about the magecraft or Jägerbegarn, but it clearly had to do with his past life thing. To tell the truth, I wouldn't have believed it even if John tried to prove it before, but to think it was all true and his soul lived once in a faraway realm. From what he mentioned, that world is knowledgeable about ours, and they view the chronicles of the Nerevarine and the other heroes as tales of legends. And so, by using those memories of a past life, he had a great advantage in many things. Maybe it is the case with all the heroes. They get this push from the world to be the best versions of themselves, relying on whatever the world can provide. Still, John is a boy. He even died at a young age in his past life. He still isn't mature enough and makes me worry all the time. Stop sighing already. Being a mother is this boring. Alf was as indifferent as ever towards my worry about the boy. It gets on my nerve, but I don't blame her. Being the firstborn clone to an ancient mage is tough, and she had to face it all alone at first, unlike the sisters that came after her. This was part of the reason she is not so open to people. She, who is my master, is a very stern and strict teacher. She is also known to be the smartest and the strongest of the sisters, as she was the one to receive the education personally from Grandmaster FYR. Even though we hated each other at first, I chose to be her student to prove myself against her. Bait, on the other hand, was the second sister, and she knew her ways around Lord FYR. She learned from Alf's mistakes and didn't annoy the Grandmaster or argue with him. She can cook and sing and do anything that makes Lord FYR pleased. Just like Bait, Delt was a great help to Grandmaster FYR. Delt is the third daughter, and she is absent at the moment. Haven't seen her in 40 years, but I am sure she is just the same. The kind and efficient person who solve all the problems and keep everything running. The youngest and the fourth sister is Ups, the one I can get along with the most, and the one who saved my life when I was a child. She is a person with a big heart and takes care of all who are around her. I was talking with the three present sisters who are my elders in a sort and was offered some sujamma to calm down my nerves. The corporisarium is my least favorite place in this house for many good reasons, and I never wanted John to be down there. But who am I kidding? This kid is going to slay dragons or whatever, right? It has been years since we sat and had a talk like that. Ups was the one who was enjoying the reunion from the heart. Alf only joined for the drinks, and Bait is curious about John. So, how is our young hero doing? Bait asked. Go upstairs and ask Lord FYR if you want. He almost fainted from happiness when he heard there is a new challenger and was about to add a few more special traps. Barely stopped him. Ups said something that made me go pale for a second. Well, this is my first time having a fourth-generation disciple from my line. I wouldn't want the boy to die that quickly. Al said, TSK, how poisonous can you be, old hag? I said, and was about to clash head-to-head with her. Now, let's enjoy this and wait for Delt. And also we can hear about John. I want to ask some questions too. Bait stopped said to keep me and Al from fighting. I took the chance to show off how awesome John is. I also included Alina to show off how talented the kids I bring up can be. I am the only third-generation disciple from the line of Divaith FYR's daughters, so having two talented fourth-generation like John and Alina was something I can brag about day long. Speaking of which, Aren't there other fourth generations other than John and Alina? I asked about something that came to my mind. Yes, there is. Drayla and Davil has established a magic school in High Rock and had some apprentices who are masters since a long time ago. There should be fourth and even fifth generations by now. Up said, Drayla and Davil is one of the greatest mages in the world and a known figure in the mage societies. She is Lord Fyr's brightest disciple, and she is a really old archwizard. From ESO, Delt wanted to take an apprentice once, but she couldn't stand how dumb people can be and gave up too early. Oh, speaking of the devil, as Alf said that, the space around us distorted and another Dunmare female appeared in the room. You three lazy bums, didn't I say I would need a hot tub as soon as I teleport in? Narina? Delt, who just teleported in the Onyx Hall, started cursing around. She seemed to be covered in some sort of a sticky substance. Long time, Delt, I said. Delt and I are always on the same page, and right away I conjured a hot water tub for her. Always the efficient one. I always knew you would be a great mother one day. Delt praised me like she always did. TSK, you are the one who ruined her with all these motherly legends you tell her. And Alf was not happy about it as always. The story about me and Delt is a bit interesting when it comes to our relationship. Ever since my birth mother passed away during the events of the Red Year, Delt took the role of being a motherly figure to me, as she herself was curious about the role and always wanted to know more about being and having a mother. Alf was mostly displeased about it, because the mother and daughter play Delt and I were in, and she always claimed that Delt was hindering my studies. To conclude it, my relationship with the Fyr sisters is unique. Alf was my childhood bully and later my master. Bait was the person I learned womanly things from, Delt was the motherly figure, and Ups was the first person I had a crush on. Later on, I learned that Lord Fyr let me live in his tower and be the responsibility of the four daughters for the sake of making them come together and share a common interest. It was an experimental idea in the end, and I was a bit offended at first, but I owed them a lot, so I didn't really try to think about it in the end. Delt joined the meeting, and Ups started telling her about what happened until the part when John entered the dungeon. He did what? Delt freaked out all of a sudden. Wait, what's wrong? He can't be in the dungeon. Not now, the place, it is not safe. Delt said in a tone that made me worried. It's okay. The kid can handle it anyway. Bait tried to assure her. No, you don't understand. There is something in the dungeon. I found it a few days ago and was planning to clear it by the night. Delt was a bit panicked when she tried to explain it. It seemed that some Elits and Kagoodies has found a way into the dungeon by the old cave on the Azure coast and colonized a swampy part of it. It is not a problem for John, let alone an Elit. A Kagoodie will be a good challenge. I said as I didn't think it would be much of a challenge. I'm not talking about a normal Kagoodie here. There is an Alpha Bull Kagoodie, and it is the mating season. John's POV. I was acting as cool as possible while facing the Kagoodie that appeared from the small swamp in the dungeon. I decided to use flame magic against the bloody thing. I used my fire magic skillfully the way John Rad had taught me and showed the ugly dinosaur who is boss. Still, it was too resilient. No matter how many burns the creature suffered, it was still agile and started roaring around as if it didn't receive any hit. Alexa, is this thing going to last forever? Please cast scan. Okay, I cast scan, and the system started analyzing the data on its own. How is it? Analysis complete. Displaying data. Race, Kagoodie. Estimated states. Level, 28. HP, 64/416. SP, 21/264. MP, 3636. Weakness, lightning. Oh, seems good. It seemed to be vulnerable to lightning. Fine, that's my strong point. I looked around and evoked sparks, the channeling spell of beginners, and aimed at the water of the swamp the Kagoodie was standing in. I didn't forget to float above the water, of course. Lightning and water is the worst combination for many reasons, and as soon as the spell struck, the Kagoodie started shivering and its HP stating going down. Huh, look at that. You should know who is boss now. I increased the output of my spell, and the Kagudi was already at its limit when something very, very unpleasant happened. Roars similar to that of the Kagudi ahead of me sounded from around the place. The small swamp started moving, and a lot of silhouettes appeared. These are... fuck me. Of course, a lot of Kagudis appeared from all around the place. Even the tunnels surrounding the area stated, showing some similar reactions on my scan. Where the fuck did all of those come from? I was a bit taken aback, but I was making preparation for a big spell this time. Still, a presence among the Kagudis made me feel a bit threatened. I looked around and focused my vision on the place tunnel it was coming from, and... fuck you guys. This is not legal. Against the rules. No one said anything about a bloody T-Rex. Asterisk. Row AOR. Star. Fuck you. I'm out of here. Chapter 172. John versus the Kardashians. 'Cause why not? This is against the rules. No one said anything about a bloody T-Rex. Asterisk. Row AOR. Star. I just saw a very unpleasant thing. Apart from the tens of the Kagudis that appeared after I recklessly electrocuted the water, a very big Kagudi with red scales and glowing eyes came from one tunnel and roared at me. The large Kagudi was almost 5 meters big, which is 2 times larger than the average Kagudi. One can compare it to a T-Rex because of the size of its mean-looking head and its sharp fangs and big tusks. Alexa, what is that? Race, Bull Kagudi. Estimated states. Level, 50. HP, 880. SP, 632. MP, 40. Weakness, lightning. Fuck you. I'm out of here. The best option right now is to run. I turned around, and just like that, I started running with my all. What about the chest and the wall, you ask? Well, I think my life is more important right now. Even though I was surrounded, it was easy to break free with my speed. The idea of facing all that number myself is not that appealing at the moment. I picked a tunnel that seemed to be empty and started running. Of course, my new Kagudi friends wouldn't want to part from me too soon and started giving a chase. Quar, roar, fa. The damn things made all kinds of noise when they ran. The scariest thing was the bull Kagudi that broke all the lines and started chasing me ahead of its pack vigorously. Go away, row awayer. No, I am not food, you dumb idiot. Star, rower. I said not food, damn it. Fine, take this. The bull Kagudi was drooling and roaring while it was running and annoyed oblivion out of me. The only way to retaliate to it is by laying traps. And what better trap than the lightning rune? I started carpeting the way behind me, with a lot of lightning rune marks appeared with a glow behind me. Once the bull Kagudi stepped on one of them, lightning exploded from the rune with a strong sound, but it was still okay and not even scratched. Damn, what is wrong with that thing? I only had to run and spam runes everywhere from this point on. Luckily, the other Kagudis weren't as resilient as the big one, so they got affected by the magic. It wasn't much longer until I started running out of escape routes and really was considering using the scroll that teleports me out of the dungeon, but I would be very ashamed if something like that happened. It was then when the system gave me a thin glimpse of hope. Analysis detected a weakness. Fuck yeah. Show me, show me, show me. All Kagudi creatures possess a bad eyesight, especially in dark spaces. They mostly rely on their keen hearing sense and their ability of vocal communication. Bad eyesight, a keen sense of hearing. I see. With that in mind, I think I can already deal with whatever that is. John was running out options, but it was time to get serious. Alexa, play me some music. John gave the order as he started casting Magisterio orbs all over the place, and it was all linked to the system. Confirmed. Bitch lasagna, PewDiePie. Hell yeah, let's jump into this. The Magisterio orb started playing the song as hard as it could, and John observed the changes happening in the surroundings. Sure enough, the Kagudis started running into the walls. John laughed and cast Muffle on himself and started going the other way, but he suddenly saw 2 glowing red eyes glaring at him. Hey, Alexa, that last thing you discovered, Is it applied on the bull Kagudi too? Negative. Fuck you. Asterisk Ruahar. Star. Not you shit. The bull Kagudi seemed to have no problems with its eyesight. John realized the fact, but the bull Kagudi started attacking. Swoosh chomp. The bull Kagudi attacked John with a swing of its large tusks, and then tried to bite John, who evaded skillfully. John managed to jump away and released his aura and cast Energize and Hasten on himself. His speed reached its peak, and the true clash between the bull Kagudi and John began. John chose to widen the battle area, to fight with ease, but the tunnel he was in was filled with Kagudis that were chasing the stereo orbs. John thought of something funny and manipulated the orbs towards the bull Kagudi. The orbs wouldn't work against such a creature, but when it was about to charge at John, what faced its charge was its kin. The other Kagudis mindlessly charged at the bull Kagudi and blocked its charge completely, resulting in a massive traffic jam in the tunnel. Sorry, mate. Next time, don't bring your kids to a fight. John was in a good mood and kicked a Kagudi that was lying on the ground towards the bull Kagudi that was standing up. With no mercy towards its kin, the bull Kagudi received the flying Kagudi with its head and bashed it away. Bastard, that was Sally, your niece. Asterisk Ruahar. You evil bastard. Don't disown your family members that fast. Here, take those 3. Kim, Chloe, and Courtney. John kicked 3 more Kagudis towards the bull Kagudi. Asterisk roar. Star. The bull Kagudi was annoyed and roared, then headbutt Chloe and Courtney away, then hit Kim with its tail back at John. Damn, you are learning. But John was surprised when Kim was kicked back at him, but he performed a matrix dodge, and Kim flew over him. Can you do this? Huh, I don't think so. During the matrix dodge, the bull Kagudi took the chance when John wasn't watching and charged at him. John realized it, but it wasn't too late. He didn't even run to the side, but charged head-on and slid on the ground, bypassing the bull Kagudi by going from between its large legs. John, who was sliding and the scene was moving in slow motion, saw something above him that made him cringe hard to the point that he missed the time to jump away. Still, he managed to roll away and stood up trying to possess what he saw. Damn, you are not a man, you bastard. I thought you were the alpha male of this pack. Asterisk roar. Star. Alexa, what's going on here? Kagudi usually live alone or in small groups. They gather in larger groups only for mating seasons. At these times, the females can be observed as the dominant sex. They might even sometimes attack the males. John couldn't help but cringe. This world needs to be burnt to hell before any feminist arrives. Sigh. Fine, from now on, I'll call you Caitlin. Caitlin didn't seem to be happy about the name and charged at John once again. Asterisk huff huff asterisk. How long has it been? John said as he was huffing and facing Caitlin, who didn't look well either. 1 hour, 12 minutes, and 33 seconds. Damn, this thing is insane. John was battling the bull Kagudi for the past hour and 12 minutes, and both started to get tired and bored. The system stated that the Kagudi were weak to lightning magic, so John did his best to fight that thing with lightning, but it still was a bit hard to penetrate all the thick scales of that creature. John checked the states of Caitlin, and it seemed that the damn thing was really having a hard time keeping up, but the problem was its stamina regeneration that was really exceptional. Luckily, with time and a lot of effort, its stamina started to regenerate slower and slower. John checked his states too. Name, John. Race, human Nord. Estimated states. Level, 35. HP, 125/390. SP, 112/310. MP, 268/954. That's it, huh? I still have some magicka to spare. Flashbang. John set the next curse of action and cast a spell right in front of the bull Kagudi. Once it landed, a bright, blinding light exploded with a strong and annoying sound wave. John has already covered his eyes and ears to avoid the spell's annoying effect. Caitlin, however, took all the damage and groaned with a roar. Hee. Sorry about that, but this is the end. John used the chance to cast the final spell, It would take a bit of time, but the spell was already powerful enough. Now, go to hell. Oh, sure. John, who was about to achieve victory with his trump card spell, was astonished when he saw the bull Kagudi pull itself out of the flashbang's effect and charge madly at him. It was a desperate attack, as the bull Kagudi seemed to have been really blinded by the flashbang. John tried to cast the spell a bit faster, but there was no way. He tried hard to do so, but the bull Kagudi was here first. Its sharp tusks were already piercing through the air, targeting John's head. Fuck! The spell was interrupted, and John had to block the bull Kagudi with his body. He had no chance but to dismiss the spell and hold onto the two big tusks that were aiming at him. Asterisk roar. Star. The bull Kagudi realized it has hit something, and as its vision became clearer, it saw John, who was pushing against it with his body while holding its tusk. John's state was worsening as his interrupted spell's magicka got backfired at him, and he spat a mouthful of blood just like that. The bull Kagudi took the chance to push with all its might, but John was not that easy to be pushed even by a giant creature like itself. John's legs were stuck into the ground while it was trying to resist the bull Kagudi that was giving all its weight in the push. Asterisk Ruhar. Star. No, you won't, Caitlin. With its mouth free, Caitlin started roaring at John, who was right in front of its face. It had no forelimbs to attack John with, which made John very thankful, but he was being pushed back towards a dead end at an alarming rate. Asterisk roar. Star. You mouth stinks, damn it. John had a sudden enlightenment and looked right at Caitlin. Roar one more time, please. Ruha. Fuss arode. Poochie. A massive flesh explosion happened in front of John, and blood dyed the surrounding area. Damn. John couldn't believe what happened in front of him. The massive Kagudi got the unrelenting force shout through its throat, and a large part behind the neck area exploded and got separated the head from the body. John was just standing there and holding the mean-looking big head from the tusks and really felt uncomfortable. He threw it away and sat on his butt. This was hard. John didn't want to do anything anymore and just wanted to rest. From the very beginning, he didn't try to use the Thursday looking at how destructive and cheaty it is. But in the end, he had to use it in a life or death situation. Phew, I guess I should go back in. Asterisk roar. Star. Asterisk KWAR. Star. Or not. John looked around him and saw two more Kagudis. I suppose he must be Kylie and Kendall. Asterisk roar. Star. Just give me a break. Damn it. John jumped up and started looking around him for a place to run away. Unfortunately, it was a dead end, and the only way out is through. Some more presences started appearing on John's scan, and he caught a sudden headache. It seemed that there was no way but to leave the dungeon empty-handed. While he was looking around, he saw a wide enough pipe hole in the cave's wall. Sigh, I guess there is only one option. Let's jump into it. Chapter 173, A Brief Rest. And this is a lore chapter, and something I wrote because I was in a good mood. The reason I crammed it here was that I really missed the timing when I should have written all that, and it is really related to the plot. Also think of it as a filler chapter if you don't like lore stuff. It wasn't that easy to go through the pipe, but I managed in the end, barely. Was it fun? No. I had to fight a feminist of a monster and run away through a bit like a skeever. Nothing fun about that. I'm even more depressed about not finding a treasure so far. I mean, half a day has passed already. Through the pipe, I couldn't directly see the end, but I managed to tell from the echo that the exit was not far. The crawling continued, and I took a small rest from time to time, but I really hated tight places. I could barely breathe in such spaces, especially after my body became larger. I don't hate it, but I think my future as a thief got a bad blow after my body became this large. The largest build in the guild back then belonged to Brynjolf, but he was one of the top members due to his charismatic nature, connections, and his way with words. Anyway, I barely could see the light at the other end of the pipeway. I also heard some strange noises that I didn't really recognize. As I almost reached the end, I found it too tight to look around as it seemed that the pipe was broken and then blocked. The place that I could see the light from could barely pass someone with a small build, not a large goon like me. Damn all. I can't even turn around in this tight PLA. Oh, I totally forgot that I can teleport, sorry. Still, I needed to see where my destination at least. If only I can mark the space like Nurina, it would have been much easier to teleport around. Marking and detecting the space are the next level techniques I haven't comprehended yet. All I could do now is to wait patiently and circulate my inner magicka to absorb the outside magicka faster. Marking and detecting the space are really some absurd techniques. Reality takes form in the space, but both the terms are a bit hard to feel in a material form. As one knows, this world has a lot of realms that got created in the void by the breath of Kinnereth during the trickery of Lorcan. To understand the space law of the world, one must understand how this space was formed and how it came to be. To a person who came from another world like me, I have a better understanding of the universe more than any ordinary mortal. But to gain an enlightenment about this world's origin, one must delve deep into the lore and the religious texts that sadly got falsified through the ages by people with agendas like the Altmare who see Lorcan as an evil demon while the humans see him as the Father God. First and foremost, I am not a believer in the being known as the Etiada as gods. The Etiada means the original spirits that have a lot of power. They are the eldest of all races and by far the strongest and the most mysterious. This belief is also the same belief that the dwarves of old believe in, as they saw the Etiada or the so-called gods as rivals and didn't really worship anything. I also believe that a great person like Great Grandmaster Divaith FYR also shares the same belief. He once has aided his friend, the living god Sothis Sil, in his fight against the Daedric Prince Nocturnal to defend Clockwork City, the realm of Sothis Sil. So, to summarize it, I acknowledge the existence and the power of the race called the original spirits or the Etiada, but I don't see them as gods. I know that they like to protect certain groups of mortals that seek gain of them depending on their wishes and moods, and they also can give powers and treasures, as well as some strong buffs, known as the blessings, but I don't view it in a divine way. My view of God is something personal, and I keep it to myself. Still, that doesn't mean I have any hate or discrimination against the original spirits. I don't have a lot of understanding about them, but I know how benevolent and malevolent they can be. They are not to be trifled with at all costs, but gaining their favor is not so bad. Why do I have to mention the original spirits when I was talking about space? Well, this is about the very existence of the world itself, and as the creator of the world, they are part of it, or it's part of them. I'm not really sure which one is the part of the other, but my bro the Augur once told me that there's a theory that these original spirits are all part of a one greater being scholars refers to as the world, which is the combined unity of the wills of all the original spirits, which makes it the set of rules that manages the world. So it is safe to say that the whole thing is too damn complicated. So, until my Magicka pool is refilled, let's begin with how did it all start according to the only source we had, the Aldmeri texts, which are known as the events of the Dawn Era, written by the damn high elves who hate Lorcan to the marrow. And Dawn Era is the age of gods. Merethic Era is the turning point of the age of gods and mortals right before the whole race gather on Tamriel. The first, second, third, and the current fourth eras are the age of mortals. First, there was nothingness, only a chaotic state of non-existence, from which arose two different and similar beings. They are known as Anu and Padme. Anu, also known as Anu the Everything, who personifies order, stasis, and light. Padme, also known as PSJJ, who personifies chaos and change. And PSJJJJ is purposefully unpronounceable. These two are counterparts, equal and opposite. Being opposite, they have clashed, and being equal, no one could win. After gaining no result of the pointless struggle, the two started to reflect and learn until the two gained an enlightenment created souls for themselves. The soul of Anu became Anwiel, the personification of the everlasting light and the soul of everything. while the soul of Padme became Sithis, the personification of nothingness and the void. And just like Anu and Padme, Anwiel and Sithis are equal and opposite. One thing must be noted that these four lack any sort of personality and can't be considered gods. They're just wills or natural forces, even though Sithis sometimes is called the Dread Father and has some cults that worship him like the Dark Brotherhood. As two opposite souls, Anwiel and Sithis reached an understanding and created something called the Orbis, which is a fancy word for the universe to set some rules. No one can tell if the universe they created was intended to be created, but that's how things went onward. The Orbis, or the universe, was in a chaotic state of changing ever since it was created by Anwiel and Sithis, being the soul of chaos and Chong. Sithis was okay with it, but Auriel, who is the opposite of Sithis, was not. In order to reach order and status, Anwiel created Auriel, later known as Akatosh, the chief god and the dragon god of time. Auriel implemented the time in the Orbis universe, and through that came forth a state of order, and other spirits started to appear. These were the ones known as the Etiata, or the original spirits. The original spirits, as well as their eldest brother Auriel, decided to stay in this universe and created some realms and mini-worlds for themselves to be their homes. These places were all summed up Etherius, which is the representation of heaven created by the benevolent Ithida, known as Edra, and Oblivion, which is the representation of hell created by the malevolent Ithida, known as the Daedric princes. The one who became angry about this state of order was Sithis, the counterpart of Anwiel, creator of Auriel, who made this mess in Sithis' beloved chaotic Orbis universe. Something had to be done, and Sithis created itself a soul, just like Anwiel, and lo and behold, here comes the big boss Lorcan. The intentions of creating Lorcan were clear, undoing what Auriel has done. Lorcan was at this point another original spirit, but his only difference was to spread chaos in the orderly universe of Auriel. Thus began Lorcan's plan. Now, here's my theory on what happened from the point where Lorcan started doing Sithis' dirty work. It is not known what was in Lorcan's mind at this time, but one can easily tell that the original spirits are more similar to mortal rather than forces like the ancient Four Souls, as the first thing they did after coming to being was to settle. If my theory here is correct, then at the time Lorcan approached the other original spirits, he liked the idea of existing and having some beings similar to himself. Just like a lonely kid who just came out of a dark room and found himself in a playground full of other kids. No matter what kind of master plan or an agenda he had, it all will have to wait aside until he plays around with the other kids. Lorcan also must have realized that he will cease to exist when his purpose is over. More to that, Lorcan must have met Kinnereth, the beautiful goddess of wind. One can easily tell what happened. Continuing my theory, Lorcan was having an inner conflict in which he had to choose between sacrificing his new friends for the orders of Sithis, which he clearly couldn't go against, or defy Sithis, which was impossible, as there should have been a consequence. From this point onward, Lorcan must have confessed to Kinnereth about the situation he is in and asked her to help him in the daring plan he is about to do. It was clear that Kinnereth joined forces with her beloved Lorcan in order to find the hole in Sithis' orders and execute a plan where Lorcan and her, as well as all her Etiata brothers and sisters, all survive. Now, here where my theory ends, and we return back to the myth of the Dawn era. Lorcan's plan was indeed cunning, which could protect himself and the others from the influence of Sithis, and at the same time is a getaway ticket. You see, the Etiata weren't really that happy about the planes of existence they were assigned to in Etherius, just like little kids who just got new toys asked for the bigger one. Lorcan used this childish behavior against them and made a grand suggestion. Why don't we all create a bigger plane of existence for all of us to have fun in and fill it with all of our creations and wonders? It sounded like a peaceful and friendly family project to create something fun together, which is much better than their dull old planes. The first to agree was Kinnereth, and even Auriel, the eldest brother of the whole bunch, was very convinced that's a very great idea, and the whole bunch agreed to call it Mundus, the mortal plane, a place out of Aetherius and Oblivion, and also far from Sithis' and Anwiel's direct influence. It is to be noted that some Eta refused to take part in the new play and kept for themselves. The rest of the merry bunch departed from Aetherius down through Oblivion and reached its edges to the place where only void existed. And, to be continued. Chapter 174, Gaining Enlightenment. And, if you didn't, I suggest reading the previous chapter carefully. The rest of the merry Eta bunch departed from Aetherius down through Oblivion and reached its edges to the place where only void existed. From this point, and in order to create Mundus, the mortal plane, the Eta had to use their powers, but there was one thing to be noted. The Eta were indeed the descendants of the Four Forces. They were opposite to Lorcan, but they all, including Lorcan, were not infinite, unlike the Four Forces, which means in order to create something, they had to give up some of their powers, which means some of themselves. Lorcan knew about that from the start, but he kept it for himself and probably only told Kinnereth. And clearly, the first one to act was Kinnereth. She, as the Lady of Wind, breathed into the void and laid the foundations to Mundus. After her came the rest of the Eta, and they all put their power into Mundus and started creating. Between them were Auriel, the eldest Eta, and Magnus, the architecture of Mundus. After creating Mundus and its center planet Nirn, the Eta realized what has happened. Lorcan's plan was to make a cage called Mundus to imprison them in, and by it, he can both fulfill Sithis' wish and saves himself and the others, but by doing so, it was clear that the Eta were going to lose their powers and fall from divinity. Some Eta who still had enough power managed to use it and followed the lead of the architecture of Mundus, Magnus, and tore holes in the existence all the way through Oblivion up to Aetherius. This caused the sun to appear from the place where Magnus used to escape, and also caused the stars to appear from the place where the other Eta used to escape. This faction of Eta came to be known as the Magna, which means the children of Magnus. These sun and stars are what links the mortal world Mundus to the higher planes of Aetherius, and from which Magicka flows into our world. During the process of creating Mundus, the Eta that disagreed with Lorcan's plan and remained away watched the whole thing unfold. They had their own plans and created their personal planes too in Oblivion. These Eta later came to be known as the Daedra or the Daedra Princes. After this point, some may think that there is one more group of Eta left, but they are actually two, and that's how things got interesting due to the development of my theory. Now, as Magnus took most of the Eta away and escaped, some remained. Those who remained were the ones who couldn't depart Mundus due to how much power they used or due to their weak nature. And the other group is the remaining powerful gods who cared for their weakened brothers and probably refused to leave without them. The most noted remaining powerful Eta were Auriel, aka Akatosh, Arche, Debella, Julianos, Mara, Stender, Zenithar, Kinnereth. Lorcan was considered a traitor in the eyes of those Eta and was to be punished. His punishment was decided in the adamantine tower that was built by Auriel in Iliac Bay. I'm still not sure about Kinnereth's standing in this meeting, though. By that time, most of the remaining weakened Eta lost their power and fell from divinity, become the first ever mortal race known as the Elnafey. The Elnafey started taking sides between Lorcan and the rest of the Eta. Due to that, a war started between Lorcan and the other Eta, led by Auriel. During that time, the Elnafey of Auriel became the elves, and the Elnafey of Lorcan became the humans. The humans were greater in number, and Lorcan's forces pushed Auriel and his elves out of Tamriel. As Auriel retreated out of Tamriel, he found other smaller continents like Atmra and Almeris to regroup with the other Eta and elves and rebuild power. Also at that time, Auriel pled Anu to return them back, but Anu refused as it has already filled their places with new Eta, which meant that they are all stranded on Mundus. Anwiel took pity on his firstborn Auriel and decided to grant him two powerful artifacts, which are the famed bow and the shield of Auriel, to save the early elves from the hordes of men under Lorcan, and thus the elves started returning back to Tamriel, seeking Lorcan's life. The two powers clashed once again, and Tamriel was devastated in the fight. Time and space were torn apart, and the Etiada fought like no tomorrow. In the end, the strongest knight under Auriel, who was known as Trinimac, the warrior elven god, killed Lorcan in front of his army and tore his heart from its body. The intention was to destroy the heart of Lorcan, which was his divine center, and by doing so, it would mean that any kind of Lorcan's aspects would cease to exist. But when Trinimac and Auriel tried to destroy the heart of Lorcan, the heart itself laughed at them. It said, "This heart is the heart of the world, for one was made to satisfy the other," which probably meant that the moment the heart gets shattered, Mundus itself will return to the void, or some unwanted variant of an apocalypse may befall. Auriel could only fasten the heart of Lorcan to an arrow and let it fly long into the sea, where no aspect of the new world may ever find it. Ironically, the heart that landed in the sea created a large volcano around itself, and thus the volcanic island of Vardenfell came to existence. It was said that a strange phenomenon happened that day. When Lorcan heart was torn, it was the day when the sky rained for the first time. This was later understood as the tears of the sky goddess Kinnereth, crying over Lorcan's demise. With that, the early Atmarans recognized the dew as Shor, the father of men that got killed by the tyranny of the Aldmer, and Kine, the mother of men and the warrior widow of Shor. As the war was over, it was the time of men to retreat from Tamriel. Some went to Atmara, and some went to Yakuta, while it is rumored that some stayed under the rule of elves, but those who departed were never heard of again until a long time later. What followed after was the retreating of all the remaining 8 Etiada, and the forming of their own plane in the space of Mundus around Nirn, thus becoming the planets that can be seen in the night sky, and got worshipped as the current-day Edra. Lorcan's body and divinity also did the same, thus becoming the 2 moons around Nirn known as Masser and Secunda. This was part of his punishment, as he was to watch his beloved Nirn from banishment with very little ability to have a say in anything. He is not a Daedra or a Magnagu, but he was close to the Edra, yet he was not one of them. He is a unique existence on his own. And note that Edra is an elven word, means ancestors, and its opposite is Daedra, which means not ancestors, as they are not a part of the creation of Mundus. Finally, the world gets stabilized, and magic mortals start to come in touch with magic, thus marking the end of the Dawn era, the age of gods, and the time of creation. This is how the world came to be and how the laws of existence were put, including the space that I was trying to comprehend by going through that story. And you have done a job well done, though. Congratulations. Oh, thank you, Mr. Peeping Tom. Me? A Peeping Tom? Oh, don't fret over it. You have been called worse. HM, can't argue with that. Oh, so what brings a shady person like you out of all times? Well, it looked like you could use a hand, and your thoughts were a bit loud. Sorry for waking you up, princess. Is that all? Foo-foo. I think if I were you, I would pick the cube. Oh, Shadow said and disappeared. This annoying fellow is still hanging around for some reason. Seems like he has more freedom than what I already thought of. I mean, wasn't my mind realm enough already? Sigh. There is no point thinking about it now. I have much more important matters to attend to. I had to check my status once again and managed to heal some wounds, then I was good to go. Okay, let's try that new trick. I spread my detection as far as I could and managed to get some sense of the area around me. The place above and beneath me felt like some sort of mazes, but I finally started to understand what I should do. My detection retreated to the point around my skin, then once again started to expand very slowly. It was not just slow, it was difficult to control and highly consumed magicka. My brain was about to get fried from the amount of the information I started receiving. The difference between my regular detection technique and this newly developed one is cast. The regular one was fast and efficient. I could reach hundreds of meters with it without having to worry about overloading my brain with information, as it was really simple. It was like seeing a ghost of the person behind the wall. But this newly developed technique is totally different. It doesn't just let me tell what is behind the wall. It made me see it. Like literally see it. This is the famed forbidden technique, the third eye or eye of the mind. It can make me see through anything without aiming my vision anywhere. I am currently closing my two eyes, but I am receiving a much better vision, as if I could see everything around me all at once, and in full HD too. This technique was forbidden because most of those who forcefully used it without training went blind. My current goal was to escape this pipe, and I finally managed to see beyond it. This is a true form of vision that can let me use the spell teleport without having to have an eye contact with the target location. I was finally able to see through space. How wondrous! With a whim, I was teleported to the place beneath the pipe I was in. Strangely, it was like a well-lit place. This is a Dwemer ruin. This was beyond what I expected. I mean, I already have seen part of the place, but I never expected it would be a Dwemer ruin. What the hell does a Dwemer ruin doing Undertale, FYR? This is a strange place for a Dwemer ruin to be. It is true that the dwarves like to build their cities in mountains and undergrounds, but not exactly under an island. But I guess that Great Grandmaster has already claimed this area as part of his dungeon. Still, this is officially my first time in a Dwemer ruin, which is 100 times more amazing than what I expected. The first thing I checked was the walls, the ground, and the surrounding area. As expected, the reputation of the Dwemer stones is beyond the understanding of us normal people. The technique that the stones were carved with and put together to build this wondrous underground place was beyond any technology this world can offer. Even in my past life, such fine, well-cut stones with this strength were crazy rare, and for it to be preserved after thousands of years from the disappearance of the dwarves without maintenance is still mind-blowing. Put the stones aside, the dwarven metal in the surroundings that decorated the walls is still as shiny as ever. Not even a single sign of rust. Heavy, strong, durable, and highly compatible with magic. Everything Dwemer is associated with perfectness and brilliance. Ahem. I'll let my inner mad scientist go on a rampage just now. I really need to hold it a bit. Calm down. Phew. I checked the surroundings again and checked the place with lust one last time. The gray stony walls and the shining bronze-colored dwarven metal were just as sexy as Alishka in my eyes. Damn it, stop. I am a normal person, not some freak. Oh my gosh, is that a dwarven spider worker? I realized that at that time, I was really like a girl in an empty mall during a Black Friday, and I was experiencing the climax of not knowing what to pick or do among all the amazing stuff around. So let's skip the part where I started playing with the dwarven spider worker that turned hostile until I had to immobilize it to study it later on. And dwarven spiders served as repair drones, keeping the massive machines in working condition, even long after their Dwemer masters had vanished, which might explain why the machinery in Dwemer ruins still remains functional. A pic https://ibb co/wggnhj7. That time, I swore to have my own dwarven ruin, just like Lord Divaith FYR. Come to think of it, wasn't that the reason why I am taking over Winterhold in the first place? Anyway, I arrived at a room at the end of the hall I was in and could feel some movement from the inside of it. For what I could see, something was being protected in that place. I guess I can finally get to work. Dragonblooded. Chapter 175. The deadliest hopscotch game ever. 1. John arrived at a large room with a lot of movement that could be felt inside. Spreading his detection across the room, he could clearly feel the movement in it. It was his first time to feel movement with no aura of life with it, which made him come to the conclusion that the source of the movement is some dwarven animunculi. These things are some automatons constructed by the Dwemer to serve and guard their homes and cities. The problem when it comes to detecting the Dwemer animunculi is that they are metallic objects with no organic components at all. This makes them the complete opposite of the living creature, and even the undead who are not that hard to detect. It also means that if a Dwemer animunculi was designed to be hidden, then there is no way to discover where it was hidden. In the end, a moving Dwemer animunculi is easy to spot. Still, it doesn't mean that they are easy to kill. These things were constructed, which means they can't have a weakness like being stabbed from a point blank or anything like that. Fighting them from the back won't be different than fighting them from the front, but it means you can only give the first strike. All in all, Dwemer animunculi are a serious pain in the ass and should be avoided rather than faced idiotically. John knew all that, and he had no problem with it at all. Now, let's see what we have here. The room seems to be 100 meters long and 40 meters wide. Some platforms, 8 dormant dwarven centurions, so better not to wake them up, a total of 50 moving objects which are too small and moving with a lot of sounds. They should be Dwemer spiders. And finally, we have a total of 12 pipes in the walls, if I'm not mistaken. These kinds of pipes is the one that the Dwemer spheres. Not sure how many spheres in each pipe, but I read that they can store up to 5. The worst-case scenario is 8 Dwemer centurions, 50 Dwemer spiders, and 60 Dwemer sphere. Damn! John started counting the ins and outs, and how much can he bypass. Also, he had to look for the traps and their triggers. This room was an open buffet of death traps and Dwemer animunculi. He had to be the best version of the infamous Catatusker if he wanted to get this right. Phew, I can see it now. That cube. John also found the cube that Shadow mentioned. It was on a stone table in the deepest part of the room and was protected by 3 dormant dwarven centurions alone. For someone like Shadow to go out of his way and recommend something like that for John, it seemed that there is something very special about that cube. The cube was simply a Dwemer puzzle cube, or that's what it looked like. Dwemer cubes can do absurd things. One of them was obtained in the game, and it contained some data to make a bigger machine work, just like a hard drive with a passcode. These things contain a lot of mystery and wonder, so John didn't question Shadow's advice too much. On the other platforms, John could see a lot of shiny stuff. Swords that were giving off light, staves with powerful auras, a strange weapon that John had a hard boner once he saw it, a Dwemer gauntlet that almost made John's eyes pop out from the shock. The hell did I just arrive into? Don't tell me that Lord FYRs has his own copies of the lusty Argonian made hidden here too. It was a place of many shiny stuff indeed. John retreated a few steps and hid behind a pillar, then started to prepare. He had a small bag with him that contained some of the necessary thief tools he needs. He then took out a potion and drank it. This is something he used to brew and drink during the old days in Rift 10. He liked to call it the adrenaline potion, but it was just a regular drug. Once all was ready, John stretched his body left and right, up and down until he felt like to go for it. The room felt like it had 3 different sections. Each section had a certain quality of treasures on its walls. John was aiming for the last section of the room. The first section was 20 meters long, and it felt like its floor was filled with random mechanical traps. Let alone getting hit by a trap, the idea of activating one meant triggering all the dormant guardians. The guardians in the first section were dwarven spiders. They are small, arachnid-like animunculi, and are very common in Dwemer ruins. They can often be found working on rocks or other objects. They can attack intruders using blasts of lightning or by emitting poisonous gases from a bag. John calculated the location of the hidden dwarven spiders and cast Muffle to hide his sounds, invisibility to hide his image, hasten to buff his speed, and levitation to float in the air. He then started to float into the room slowly. However, once he passed the door, the levitation spell was canceled. John, who was midair, fell on his feet, but luckily, no sound came out. His heart almost jumped from its place, and he looked around frantically. He then came to a realization. A no-fly zone? As expected of Lord FYR. Still, I should have brought a change with me. John was intending to pass through the first section of the room while floating, but it didn't seem to be working. He then had another idea and tried to teleport himself outside the room. As expected, Teleportation doesn't work too, which means if I wanted to use the scroll to exit the dungeon, I need to run outside the room first. It was annoying, but John understood the rules of the game. He remembered the saying of Lord FYR in TS3, Morrowind, when he said that he likes sport, and his favorite sport is to watch people sneak into his dungeon. This must be the most favorite round of Lord FYR. As you wish, great Grandmaster. I will entertain you to the best of my ability. John whispered those words in a low tone. Not far from what he is, a dark elven man with white hair was sitting and nodding with a smile. Behind him were 5 dark elven women. 4 of them looked like him, and the last one was Nurina. They all looked at a screen like a mist that reflected the image of the room John was in. Back to John, he looked up and down, left and right to see if there is anything that he may use to pass the first section unscathed. The only clue he found was that every tile of the floor was a pressure plate, and all had foot marks and numbers. John looked closely, then opened his eyes wide from what he realized. Fuck, is this a master-level hopscotch? He was right. The numbers and the footmarks on the tiles meant that it was a hopscotch game. The lane of tiles even had branches for those who wanted to pick a treasure from the first section of the room. Hopscotch is a popular children's playground game in which players toss a small object into numbered triangles or a pattern of rectangles outlined on the ground, and then hop or jump through the spaces to retrieve the object. This game, however, had no object to toss. It had a treasure to retrieve, and a failure probably means death. The footmarks meant that it only can fit the foot of an adult, which means boots were very dangerous in such a game. John took off his boots right away. The first tile required the left foot, so did the second and the third all the way to the 9th. John could only do so and jumped on the first. Phew, nothing happened. John was feeling better when he didn't mess this one up. Each tile was 1 meter in length, so it wasn't that hard to jump from center to the other, except it needed a certain accuracy. As John was a tall person, he wasn't really disadvantaged in this trail at all. He started hopping all the way to the 9th tile. The 10th hop was to be done on 2 tiles with 2 feet. Once John tired it, he almost felt that he was about to screw it up if a foot landed before the other. With all the strength that he could muster, he managed to land with the 2 feet at the same time. Fuck a scale. The 10th tiles were connected like a scale. He had to keep the balance between the two while trying to jump to the 11th. Phew-ack. John was barely keeping the balance, and his legs were trying to keep up with the scale movement until he finally jumped to the 11th tile. As he was about to land on the tile with his left leg, he realized that he got accustomed on the previous tiles where he used his left foot, and this on changes to the right foot. He switched to the right foot a femtosecond before the disaster falls. It is still dry down there, right? Few an inch. John took a few seconds to calm down and continued the way to the 18th tile where he had to face a scale again, then finished it easily this time, then passed the 20th tiles and landed on the threshold between the first section and the second section. He looked around and made a crying face. His invisibility has long since gone, and he only kept the muffle spell for the sake of keeping silent. After complaining for a while, he turned his face to the second section. Chapter 176, the deadliest hopscotch game ever. 30 meters long this time, but it looked rather scarier than the first section. The floor was a bit lower than the level of the threshold and was filled with a water-like substance. From the scent, John realized that this is a flammable substance. On the corners of the room, very small green flames were being kept lit on a few millimeters above the flammable oil surface. This was a clear message: make the slightest ripple into the oil and get your ass grilled. John had a strong urge to cry, but it was already too late. In his life, he regretted giving himself the surname Dare a few times, and this is one of them. Still, he had his reputation to live up to. John checked the place again and noticed that the movement sound from a while ago came from these sections. There were some dwarven spiders behind the walls, but it seemed like they aren't triggered yet. John looked up to the ceiling and down on the oily floor and noticed something strange. On the ceiling, There was a map for the sky constellations. The maid constellation was glowing, then dimmed after a while. The following constellation was the shadow, then the steed. With every constellation glowing, some small tiles pop out of the flammable oil pool, and then they go down when another constellation glow, and another set of tiles pop up instead. So, you want me to curse out loud, don't you? Is this a sage-level hopscotch? John was infuriated. He was walking on the threshold and grinding his teeth, but managed to calm down at the end and started analyzing the constellations. They were going around in an orderly fashion and nothing seemed to be wrong with them. Each constellation lasted around 10 seconds. John started to calculate the tiles he should jump on, and it seemed easier than what it looked like at the beginning. But all his plans went in shambles at the end. The reason? Well, it is pretty simple. The Serpent constellation. The same bloody stars he was born under. The Serpent constellation appeared between the Tower and the Atranak constellations and lasted 5 seconds before the circle went back to order once again. John observed the next circle of constellations, and this time the Serpent appeared between the Lord and the Mage. Oh boy, this is annoying. John sat down and kept observing for an hour until he understood that the Serpent constellation was random. A pattern didn't appear even after 30 circles. John gave up and tried to focus on the regular constellations until he decided to give it a try. He waited for a constellation when the Serpent appears as early as possible, and his wish came true when it came between the Lover and the Lord constellations. John hopped on the nearest tile and jumped as fast and as skillful as he could. There were no feet restrictions this time, so it was a piece of cake, until it happened. Halfway through, John couldn't go forward anymore. The tiles on the right side of the room were rather close to each other, but didn't seem to be reaching the second threshold soon. John was vexed, so he tried to return before the circle ends. What made the matters worse was that the tiles behind him were getting lesser and lesser until he ran out of foothold. Now, with the timer in his mind, he already had 6 seconds for the next circle's first constellation, the Ritual, to come up. Once the timer reached 0, John jumped towards the place where he knew that a tile should go up. It was weird, but the tile didn't show up. It didn't come out at all. John had the spell haste on him and looked around with panic to only find that the first constellation this circle was the Serpent. It meant that the Ritual won't come up for the next 5 seconds. John was in a great deal of trouble. His vision shook, and he suddenly wanted to quit as soon as possible, but there was no way he could escape. He had no options left. With the power of his body, John managed to flip around in the air and succeeded to cast Featherfall 1 meter above the ground. It was a slow fall, but still falling. John was descending on the flammable oil, just like that, and he had no choice but to give it his all in his dire situation. He burned all his magicka and supplied the Featherfall spell with all the power he could. His falling speed was reduced, but still was it enough? John still had one card in his sleeve, but he kept telling himself, not just yet. He gritted on his teeth and spread his body horizontally to avoid any contact with the oil pool as MUC. Tink. The constellation changed. John's only thought was how to maintain his position without any contact to the oil pool. He reached his hands towards the coming tile and firmly held on to it. With all the power of his body, John managed to keep himself standing on the tile with one hand. With his breath turning haggard, John gritted on his teeth, then pushed himself in the air and flipped his body to stand on a tile. Some acrobatic moves later, John reached the threshold once again. He just lost all the power in his legs and fell on his face. Asterisk sob, I want mommy. After he managed to get collected, John already came to a better plan. When he was standing on his hand, he managed to see the tiles from a different angle and understood one bizarre truth. The Serpent constellation is not there to hinder the bath. It actually was there to make it easier. The Serpent, both in reality and in the oil pool constellation, was the longest constellation even though it was made of 4 stars. What John had to do was like how it follows. He jumped on the nearest tile he could reach and kept waiting in the range of the Serpent's first star. Once it came, John had to wait 5 seconds on it before proceeding to the next, following the same pattern to the third and then the fourth. In the end, he finished the second section with the flying colors after spending 4 circles on it. Now John stood on the threshold between the second and the third sections. He looked at the third section that was around 50 meters in length. This was as long as the previous 2 combined. John didn't find any clue on how can he go past this section. He looked on its walls and saw a lot of beautiful treasures that were sparkling like crazy. The previous 2 sections also had treasures, but they didn't stand out as much as this section. The artifacts here gave off a majestic and a profound feeling as if they were crafted by a god. Still, John's eyes were set on the Dwemer cube that could be carried in hand. Shadow gave a hint that this was the best artifact, and it was indeed in the center of the most guarded spot. The third section had all the dwarven spheres and centurions staying dormant and waiting, all that with the cube at the furthermost area in the third section guarded by 3 dormant dwarven centurions. The dwarven spheres are a common form of the Dwemer animunculi that have proven to be agile fighters and are much stronger than the smaller dwarven spider. Dwarven spheres patrol ruins in a spherical form until they encounter an opponent. At this point, they will erect into their semi-humanoid form and attack. There are different kinds of centurion spheres. Some are armed with an extendable sword and a shield, while others have a crossbow mounted on their offhand arm instead. The dwarven centurions are heavily armored gigantic constructs with either an extendable mace on one arm or a hammer on one arm, and a spring-loaded spike in the other. Some are even able to emit a scalding blast of steam. They are not as common in dwarven ruins as the lesser dwarven automatons. John only calmed his head and started looking around the place for anything to be wary of. He was later amazed when he found out that the whole walls and floors were all trapped with high electrical shock attacks. This was similar to the Tesla Tower project he was planning on, but it was rather meant for another purpose. Odd. Now that I look at it, I never thought Lord FYR would be so obsessed with Dwemer artifacts and mechanisms. He is a sorcerer that devoted all his years to study magic. Why is this obsession with Dwemer tech all of a sudden? John arrived at a certain point and inquired on it. Divaith FYR was indeed not a user of Dwemer technology, as magic was his pride and joy. The real trap shouldn't be to awaken the large horde of the dwarven animunculi. They are here for distractions. John checked the nearest dwarven centurion with detection and found a lot of its part was actually enchanted with simple enchantments. Let's see. They resist shock damage and fortify. Gravity? Why would the enchanter want to fortify gravity? John started thinking about the reason behind the enchantments and thought of a weird idea. He then took out a small piece of paper from a small bag and threw it into the room. Oh my God! John didn't see the paper fall, but fly unhindered in a straight line. This is a zero-gravity room that you're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.